This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
.603, Talk Breakfast. Is a new Prime Minister coming? Mark Dolan with you for a very big 4 hours. Breaking this morning. Will it be third time lucky for Andy Burnham as the King of the North seeks to become the political king of the country? Meanwhile, Starmer's allies turn on the Prime Minister, with Ed Miliband, once a Sir Keir loyalist, now plotting his boss's downfall. And with Starmerite MP Josh Simon vacating his seat for the Greater Manchester Mayor, what is going to happen next? Can Starmer cling on to power? And is Andy Burnham taking voters for granted? Can he win an election in the North West? Well, standing in his way is one Nigel Paul Farage, who may be able to do Starmer a favour by finding a candidate that can beat Andy Burnham and win the seat for Reform. Meanwhile, a miracle has happened. Angela Rayner has settled her dispute with HMRC, but would we receive the same kind treatment from tax authorities if we didn't pay our stamp duty? Something stinks. We've got the inside story. And as this political beauty contest turns ugly, what is going to happen? Streeting thinks that he's going to win. Who wins the top prize? My question to you this morning is a simple one. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 03444991000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Tommy's on the phones today. Sam's pressing the buttons. Christian's the boss and directing our TV output, the brilliant Luke. You can hear the show on DAB+, in-app and online with more listeners than ever. But you can also watch the show. So head to YouTube, search Talking Up. We pop, as the saying goes, let's talk. And what do you think about this? Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Can Starmer cling on? Is he the devil we know? 03444991000. Let's get to work. And we will kick off with today's front pages. The Daily Telegraph. Burnham launches bid for number 10. Way cleared for Manchester Mayor to challenge Starmer after MP steps aside. But Farage pledges to throw everything at Northern seat with slim Labour majority. Meanwhile, fresh blow for PM after Wes Streeting quits, saying we need a vision, not a vacuum. Question is is Wes Streeting a sucker? Rayner cleared in tax case 24 hours after she demanded a decision. The Guardian, Burnham bids to topple Starmer, but he must win by-election first. And Farage paid £1.4 million in cash for his home after a £5 million gift. I'll be putting that issue to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, shortly. Daily Mail, God help us all, day 2. Labour's great pretenders. Streeting quits, but number 10 mocks failure to get votes to challenge PM. Experts voice surprise that HMRC cleared Angela Rayner in 40 grand stamp duty row. And Burnham's comeback bid in seat reform has the best chance of winning. The Sun newspaper, MP steps aside for Mayor, Burn to run is the headline. The Times newspaper, Burnham makes move. Also, Zach Polanski is in the news, Captain Cleavage himself, the leader of the Greens. He admits he didn't vote in the local elections this past week. Well, that's quite interesting, isn't it? This guy claimed that he'd voted by post. He seems to be a proven liar. He told women he could grow their breasts through hypnosis. He didn't pay his council tax whilst on a houseboat. He pretended to have worked for the Ministry of Justice when in fact he was an actor working on a freelance basis. And he also claimed to be, in charge of the Red Cross or something? He was a volunteer. This guy is a dodgy wrong-un. The Daily Express, where we need vision, we have a vacuum. Labour chaos as Wes Streeting quits cabinet and MP stands aside to let Andy Burnham run. The I paper, Streeting and Burnham start leadership battle to force out Starmer. More front pages to come, but with me in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome former Labour MP, now Reform UK supporter, broadcaster and international entrepreneur, Simon Danchuk. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
So, Andy Burnham hopes that he can win this seat in the northwest, but it's not going to be a straight, easy run, is it?
No, and he thinks he's entitled to this seat. That's the arrogance of the situation, isn't it? He thinks he can be parachuted in there, that the good people of Makerfield will back him because they know that he can get rid of Starmer and ultimately become Prime Minister. That's his vision, that's his ambition. But I think they may well stop him. It's all to be played for. I mean, it's a fascinating time in politics.
Well, how big a deal is Andy Burnham in the northwest?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. He is a character. He's a personality in the northwest. He's been mayor of Greater Manchester for a good few years now, so he's certainly known. He does have connections to the constituency, so it won't be easy for Reform to beat. It's a two-horse race. This is Reform against Labour. The Greens are nowhere near it, so it's going to be one heck of a fight, and it's difficult for Reform because what Burnham's going to do is going to paint himself as the person to get rid of Starmer.
Right.
If you want rid of Starmer, vote Burnham, which is stealing Reform's slogan from the local elections, in actual fact. And he is a personality. But going against him, it does look arrogant. It looks like he's parachuting himself in to this seat as though he's entitled. And I think that will go down badly with strong northern folk like what you've got in Makerfield.
And a former minister of Starmer's government, Jess Phillips, has thrown some shade at Andy Burnham, saying it looks presumptuous. But the issue is he needs to get back into the House of Commons, otherwise he can't be Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right, you've got Jess Phillips mildly attacking Burnham because she's quite aligned with Wes Streeting. I was just reading a quote there from Steve Reid, Labour Minister for Communities and Housing. He says, after hearing that Burnham's making a comeback, if anybody thinks there is a caped superhero that is coming our way with all the answers, they have another thing coming. So there's complete chaos at the central government. We're trying to run a country, and this is what's going on amongst Labour ministers.
Most definitely. Notwithstanding their political calibration within the party and the fact that Streeting's on the right, so others that are on the right will support him, why do figures like Steve Reid and Jess Phillips clearly not like Andy Burnham?
Well, I mean, a significant point, and this is really against Burnham, is that he started off a Blairite, then he became a Brownite, then he became a Corbynite, and now is this sort of northern version of everything combined. I mean, he is Mr. Flip-Flop. That's why I don't have much regard for him in terms of his political abilities, because he's just all over the place. He plays to the audience, and in some respects that might be good electorally, and it's managed to help him survive. But is that what you want as a Prime Minister, leading a country? Somebody who can't make a decisive decision, who's going one way and the other way? I'm not into that fashion of politics.
Well, we've already got a Prime Minister that doesn't believe in anything. So do we want to replace him with more of the same, but just better packaged?
Yeah, absolutely. He's certainly a good communicator. He's a better communicator than Starmer. But in terms of having a vision and being forthright and knowing where the country should be going, you don't get that with Burnham, if we're honest about it.
Do you know Andy Burnham personally?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've known him for some years. I mean, we don't talk anymore, but he came campaigning for me in Rochdale in 2007, 2008. So we go back, you know, a considerable amount of time.
And he was an out-and-out Blairite at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And look where he is now. You know, he's this sort of soft left character, you know, almost a socialist. But that's not where he comes from. You can't believe a word he says. He's playing to his audience on every occasion.
Do we know much about his record when he served in Gordon Brown's cabinet? Did he impress as a cabinet minister?
Well, he was. I suppose he would be perceived as a safe pair of hands. You know, he was gradually climbing the ministerial ladder, and so he does have a track record of doing government, which is, you know, which is not, can't be said for all of them. But no, I think he's the wrong choice for next Prime Minister.
What about his character? I mean, is he a very level-headed guy? Is he intelligent? Is he talented?
Oh, well, he's certainly level-headed. He's an intelligent guy. But I don't think he's got what it takes. I think the people of Makerfield will see through him. They'll feel like he's trying to use them. And, you know, remember this, and we didn't have this under the Conservatives. Labour is in so much chaos. The British public have got to pay for 2 by-elections to try and sort out Labour's mess. We've got to pay for a by-election in Makerfield. We've got to pay for a by-election for Greater Manchester Mayor. Why should we have to pay just because Labour needs to sort itself out? Why are we having all these by-elections all of a sudden?
Is there an element with Andy Burnham of the Emperor's new clothes? Because he's not in Westminster, he's not tainted by this current administration or the general sleaze in the seat of our democracy, that he's perceived as the Great White Hope, and actually it's all just illusion.
It is an illusion. That's exactly right. Because he's, you know, he's the king across the water or something. You know, that he can be brought in from the north.
A bit like your neighbour's missus seems a bit more attractive than your own from time to time.
Well, I'm not going to get into that comparison. But,
not like you, because you're a very moral man.
Absolutely, and always have been. But you coined a phrase the last time I was on your show. If Andy Burnham was made of chocolate, he would eat himself, and that encapsulates Andy Burnham. He's all about himself. That's the problem, not just for us, but for Makerfield and for the country itself if he becomes Prime Minister.
6:13 Talk Breakfast. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Here's a voice note.
Morning, Mark and Mr. Danchuk. Lee from Scarborough in his van, veteran. How entitled does Andy Burnham think he is? This shouldn't be allowed, really. For an MP to step down and give way to him to try and go for the leadership of the Labour Party. Unbelievable. Out of 403 MPs, not one of the Labour guys is any good. What does that say about our politics? What does that say about our MPs? Honestly, 403 and not one good enough to challenge for leadership. What a pile of... Oh, God. Give me strength. Great show, lads, anyway. Keep it up.
Lee, what a brilliant voice note that was. Do keep them coming. 03444991000. And Lee raises a good point, Simon Danchuk. The candidates, the runners and the riders, are all tainted in their own way. Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, who's seen as just a big careerist. Then you've got Ed Miliband, who's already been the leader of the Labour Party and failed. You've got Shabana Mahmood, who's too right-wing for those backbenchers. And then you've got a regional mayor. It's not an embarrassment of riches, is it?
No, it's not. It's not a great choice at all, to be quite honest. And picking up on what Lee said there, he's absolutely right. You've had Josh Simon parachuted into the seat. He has no real connection to it, and now he's trying to hand it over to Andy Burnham as though it's in his gift. And then you have Andy Burnham saying in his statement the fact that he's going to go for this seat, that he has strong connections to it and that he's delighted. He's asked about half a dozen different Labour MPs in the North West if they'll give up the seat. He has no attachment to Makerfield in reality. He doesn't care about Makerfield because he's been trying to be the MP for various other seats in the North West. It's not like he has this strong attachment and he just wants to represent the people of Makerfield. That's what he said in his statement, but it's not true.
And what do we know of the makeup of Makerfield? It is a leave, it's a leave area, so that's quite telling, isn't it? Yeah. Predominantly white British, I believe.
Yes, very much white British, working class, ex-mining area, I think I'm right in saying. This is there's no ethnic minorities in the area particularly. This is which means it's a real fight, and as you say, they all voted, a majority voted to leave the European Union, as relevant as that is now. But this is a real fight between Reform and Labour, and you know, people around Burnham are saying this is why he's gone for this seat. He's gone for this seat because it's the only one available to him. They're painting it as though if he can win here, he can beat Reform nationally. That's how they're painting it.
If I was Andy Burnham, I'd be quite concerned, because that seat achieved a 5,500 majority in July 2024 at the general election, and this was amidst a massive Labour swing and a landslide majority. So that is not a safe seat, is it? 5.5k?
No, not at all. No, that's exactly right. This is going to be tight. It's going to be one heck of a fight. I've been in by-elections and I've been in general elections I've been in elections for nearly 40 years. This is going to be one heck of a fight. Reform are going to throw everything at it.
And turnout might be decisive.
Yes. I suspect the higher it is, the worse it will be for Labour. I think Reform have to get their vote out, and if they do, then that'll do for Burnham and he'll be out. And the stakes are high for Burnham. If he loses this, surely he can't carry on as mayor. He really needs to resign as mayor of Manchester before he fights his seat. He can't have it every which way. You know, I think the people of Makerfield might give him a bloody nose, actually.
Wow, how interesting. Now, Tony in Stoke-on-Trent has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Simon. I'm off work for the next 2 weeks due to a double eye operation. But when I'm working and I deliver all around the country, I'm delivering in Makerfield, including Ashton, Up Holland, Haydock and Pemberton. Let me tell you that just through the veterinary surgeries I deliver to, people of Makerfield are as fed up about Labour as anyone else. Andy Burnham will not win that seat, as 24 out of 25 council seats went to Reform just a week ago. Keith says, good morning, Mark. I'm sure Nigel Farage already knows who the candidate will be for the upcoming by-election. It would be excellent to get Zia Youssef into Westminster. Thank you for that, Keith. Larry the Cat for PM, says Bill in Cheshire. Good at his job, good communicator, high profile, eats vermin, fully vetted. His father was a cat. He knows what a lady cat is. He's a better bet than the current bunch of clowns. Bill, thank you for that very entertaining text. Louise in Ipswich, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Simon. Will Reform throw the kitchen sink at this, at the by-election, or would they prefer Burnham to get in to further destabilise Labour? And Sharon, good morning, Mark. A new Prime Minister will not save the Labour government. They all just need to shut up and get out so that our economy can get back on track. Sharon, thank you so much for that. Interesting question there from Louise in Ipswich, Simon. Will Reform throw the kitchen sink at this, or would they rather Burnham actually gets into number 10 to destabilise Labour? What do you think?
I think Reform need to win this. I really do. I think it's incumbent on them to win it, to show that they're getting ready for government, to show that, you know, that they can win anywhere, that they can beat people like Burnham. Burnham will paint himself as a return to Labour values. That's the impression he will try to give. You know, if you vote for me, it's a return to traditional Labour values, and he thinks that might have an appeal to Makerfield voters. But I don't think it will be enough. I think they'll see through him.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there are two people who would really love Reform UK to win that seat in Makerfield. One would be Nigel Paul Farage, the leader of Reform. The other would be the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Because if Burnham doesn't get into the Commons, well, then his chances of surviving in number 10 massively increase.
Yes, that's exactly right. You know, you couldn't make this politics up. You've got Keir Starmer, who refused to let Burnham stand in the Gorton and Denton by-election because he thought it would be a challenge to him. But now he thinks that he might lose the seat in Makerfield. He's letting Burnham stand so that he can lose it, so that he's safe in his own position.
Give him enough rope with which to hang himself.
Exactly. I mean, some credit to Starmer. I'm no fan, but he plays it every which way.
Is Nigel Farage going to select a big-name candidate for this constituency, such as Shadow Home Secretary Zia Youssef? And can a new Prime Minister save Labour? 6:21, this is Talk Breakfast.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Here's a voice note from Big Andy.
Morning, Mark. Andy from Hull. And just like that, Labour have scored another massive own goal by giving Nigel Farage and Reform controllers to who they're putting this by-election against Andy Burnham. Nigel doesn't even have to lift a finger on the passing in power. It's crazy. It's crazy. Have a good day, mate.
Andy, thank you for that. You're right to pose that question, Andy. And actually, another question I want to put to Simon Danchuk comes from Andy, a different Andy in Doncaster. Good morning, Mark. Great show as always. Quick question regarding the MP stepping aside for Burnham, Josh Simon. Will he get a payoff and who will pay it? Because I'm sure I wouldn't give away a 100k salary. What do you think? Well, Andy raises a good point. This guy won't get a payoff, will he? However, there may be some other political prize if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's right. He must have done some sort of deal with Burnham in terms of getting a senior advisory role if Burnham becomes Prime Minister, or getting put in the House of Lords. Something will have been done. This won't be the end of Josh Simon's career.
Because he's a young man.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got to remember the history to this Josh Simons. He was leading Labour Together, this organisation, this front organisation that helped Starmer become leader of the Labour Party and then Prime Minister. Morgan McSweeney had been running it, who went on to become Chief of Staff to Starmer, and then Josh Simon took it over from Morgan McSweeney. This organisation, Labour Together, sponsoring lots of different Labour candidates. So this particular type of Labour MP, and what does he do? Serious allegations against him, not least in terms of the Sunday Times newspaper, that he were encouraging briefings against journalists, and that was
some of which were considered to be of an anti-Semitic flavour in relation to Gabriel Pogrund, who was a Jewish journalist at the Times.
Yes, exactly right. And he was mired in this controversy around this. It's quite a big political story, you know. It's quite niche, but nevertheless, it disgraced him in many respects. And I suspect that that's one of the reasons he's decided to go as an MP. He had to resign as a minister because of it, and now he's been disgraced in many regards because of that scandal, and he's seen the chance to get out and to do a favour to somebody who could become Prime Minister, and he's hoping to get rewards afterwards. That's my take on it.
Now, there's another development, which is that the Starmer loyalists seem to be turning on the boss. You've got Josh Simon, who, as you've said, was a big Starmerite and helped Sir Keir to become Prime Minister. Then you've got Ed Miliband, who's been very loyal to the Prime Minister throughout this administration, who appears to be plotting now his boss's downfall. Then you've got other figures who would be allied to the PN's project who have gone very quiet. So Starmer seems to be running out of friends.
Yes, I think that's right. And there's a big piece in the Daily Mail about Ed Miliband turning on Starmer. You know, so he's already been to Starmer and said that he should set out a timetable for giving up the premiership, and that's not been denied by anybody. It's also been said by Labour MPs that Ed Miliband is going round briefing against Starmer. Yeah. So I believe all this to be true. Ed Miliband is, I would think, positioning himself to become Chancellor of the Exchequer for whoever becomes Prime Minister.
And how unsurprising that Ed Miliband should be disloyal to Sir Keir Starmer. He's got previous on this, hasn't he, in a very personal capacity?
Yes, exactly. I mean, and I was a Member of Parliament. I was a Labour MP at the time. I was backing David Miliband to become leader of the Labour Party, and it was Ed, could you believe it, that did the dirty on his brother and just managed to beat him for the leadership. Always a very strange situation. No, I'm not a fan of Ed Miliband at all. If he's the answer to any question, then we're asking the wrong question.
Well, if you're talking about character in politics and the right person to be leading the country, somebody that stabbed his own brother in the back, and David Miliband was in pole position to win the Labour leadership and would likely have won that particular election in 2015.
Yeah, I think much better position to win in 2015. And
the Tories had no real right to win in 2015, did they?
No, exactly right. And this is the problem that Labour's had since 2010. Gordon Brown loses the general election. Who takes over? Ed Miliband, this North London Labour walk sort of politics, and he's a total failure. I called for him to go as leader in 2014. In actual fact, when I was a Labour MP, myself and Ian Austin, who's now in the House of Lords, called for
another big call, which was the right call.
It was the right call. He should have gone, but he didn't. And then if matters got worse, he then reorganised the electoral system within Labour, which enabled Jeremy Corbyn, another North London Labour politician, to become leader of the Labour Party. And then if that's not bad enough, we end up with Starmer, yet again, another North London Labour.
And how ironic, before I get to a brilliant text from Alex in Belfast, how ironic that if you look at the odds and what Paddy Power and William Hill are saying at the moment, Sir Keir Starmer will be replaced by yet another middle-aged white man from the wokest party in the land.
Yes, and they talk about diversity. The irony is there, isn't it?
I mean, the Tories managed their first female leader and Prime Minister in 1979, when I was 5 years of age and you weren't much older yourself. Since then, we've had Liz Truss, Theresa May, Kemi Badenoch, and, of course, Rishi Sunak. The most diverse lineup you can think of.
And Labour
is that a story? Well, all it shows is that they are disgusting hypocrites, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because they preach wokery and diversity, and when they're on their own watch, never happens.
And not just white men. I mean, all from North London. I mean, you know, what are the chances of that?
Because, of course, like you, I couldn't give a damn about their gender or skin colour. And if it's a white man that's going to save Britain and get the economy growing and close the border, happy days. I couldn't care less. But it's just ironic that that's the game they play.
And they have a particular kind of politics. That's the issue. This doesn't relate to hard working class people, which is what Labour was born to serve.
Most definitely. Alex in Belfast, good morning, gents. Burnham, surely if he's running as a Labour candidate, he'll have to run on current Labour policies. So his pitch to the voters has to be continuity Starmer, and he'll have to support all the current Cabinet's position on tax and migration. Is that true, Simon?
Yeah, that is really interesting point from Alex there, actually. I think this is what could do for Burnham. He will be tested to the nth degree on whether he's supporting Labour policy, whether he's supporting Keir Starmer. In every interview, on every occasion, is he backing Starmer? Is he supporting net zero? Is he supporting the whole, whatever the policy is, you know, in terms of Shabana Mahmood's policies on immigration? Because he's softer on these issues, so he's going to be tested on all of those, and he's going to be found wanting, I think. That's a really interesting point.
Well, that's right. If he was a backbencher in the House of Commons, he could lose the whip for speaking out against current Labour Party policy. Do the same rules exist for a candidate? Could the local association withdraw their support for this candidate?
Well, I mean, that happened in the Rochdale by-election. The Labour did withdraw support for their candidate there, didn't they, Azhar Ali, because he'd made some, it was alleged he'd made some anti-Semitic comments, and so support can be withdrawn. I don't think it'll get to that stage with Burnham, but he is going to be tested to the nth degree on whether he's supportive of Keir Starmer, whether he backs all the Labour policies that are currently in place, and he will struggle on that.
If we are about to have a new Prime Minister, what is the timeline? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:35. You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Here's a voice note from Dave.
Hey Mark, Dave from Hertfordshire here. as for this Labour contest for next Prime Minister, they know this is their only chance to have Iowa's Prime Minister on their CV, because they know in 24 months they're going to lose it. And they're going to lose it big. And they probably will all be out of a job, and they'll be looking for jobs on the international stage. So it's now or never, isn't it? Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Dave. And it is now or never. An excellent voice note. Joanna in Salisbury. Good morning, Mark and Simon. Does Simon think that if she would stand, somebody like Maggie Oliver, of course, ex-cop who called out the grooming gang scandal, were to be the Reform candidate? Well, that's the million-dollar question. Who does Nigel Farage select to fight this seat in order to keep Burnham out of the House of Commons?
I think Maggie Oliver would be a fantastic candidate for Reform. I'm a big fan of Maggie. Maggie and I met during the Rochdale grooming scandal in my constituency office back in 2012. So I've known Maggie for a considerable amount of time.
Well, you were very early to call out the grooming gang scandal, and you got dog's abuse for doing so.
Yeah.
And so you connected with Maggie at that time. You saw her moral courage and her strength.
Yes, absolutely, and have always been very supportive of her. She would be a great candidate, and I think she would win it. There's no doubt about that. I think she would win it. People would, of all colours and parties, would want to go and campaign for her, actually. I think even Conservatives would be encouraged to campaign for her. I think she would have a good chance of winning it. And if it's not her, then Farage, I think my advice would be to pick somebody relatively local, make sure they've been checked in terms of their robustness to go through a by-election.
Have a quick flick through their Twitter.
Yes, exactly, and everything else. Make sure they're a robust candidate, somebody local, somebody, you know, who can fight it, who's got the confidence. But I don't think a national Reform figure is probably right for this. I think we made that mistake in Gorton and Denton. I like Matthew Goodwin. I think he's a good guy. I think he's really smart, has loads to offer to British politics, but I don't think he was quite right for that seat. And so parachuting somebody in from a national figure from Reform, I think, would be a mistake here.
It would likely be a political and reputational risk for somebody like Zia Youssef, the Shadow Home Secretary, to run, because A, not a local candidate, and B, if he were to lose, that damages his brand, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Zia Youssef would be right for Makerfield. I can't imagine he has any connection to the place. I don't think he talks Makerfield. I don't think he talks the language of Lancashire. These are Lancashire folk, and he doesn't speak their language precisely.
Now, how long might it take for a by-election to be organised in Makerfield? Because that clearly needs to happen. We know now that Josh Simon has resigned his seat, so it's in motion.
Yeah.
But we're looking at, what, 2 to 3 months before a vote can actually happen?
Yeah, I think it could be sooner than that. And I think Labour will want to call it quickly. That's what they tend to do. They try and call it. So I think we're weeks away. It could be about 8 weeks away. It's for the government to call it. What would that take us to? May, June, July? Yeah, I think it will be early July. That's my money. I'd put money on it being first Thursday in July if I were to do an estimate.
Well, there you go. My team who are working 24/7 on this have already come in with an answer, and you're exactly right. They've said 3 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So you could be looking at July latest.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is quite spectacular and politically significant. Nigel Farage is invested in beating Andy Burnham. Because actually the risk with Burnham is that Labour get to refresh the project, rehabilitate themselves in the eyes of the electorate.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Farage has got to win this. I mean, he has to do everything in his
He doesn't
power.
really want Burnham with his political skills in number 10, does he?
No, because, you know, this is quite a plausible scenario. Burnham wins Makerfield, he challenges for the leadership, he becomes Prime Minister, and all this happens in relatively quick succession. And before you know it, Burnham's got a bit of a, and don't shoot the messenger here, Burnham's got a bit of a bounce. He's got a small honeymoon period, and before the end of the year is called a general election, and they don't have the losses of Labour seats that they would have had if Starmer had remained. They'd lose seats, but they've got plenty to lose, and you could end up with a Labour majority that's relatively small.
Which is absolutely fascinating. And Burnham, who we know has political skill, notwithstanding his potential weaknesses as a leader, and especially what you said earlier about the flip-flop. And I'm sick of politicians going on a journey. Enough. You've not been on a journey. I've known you for many years. You've always thought the same things. I mean, that's the point. But anyway, so Burnham, potentially, he gets into number 10, there's a Burnham bounce, and facing criticism that he doesn't have a mandate, he can own that and go, I completely agree with you. Do you know something? Sky News and Nigel Farage and Kevin Baynock, you're absolutely right. I don't have a mandate, which is why I'm going to seek one. And with that, and with some momentum, and with not much known about this guy, he goes to the country.
Exactly right. And then
that would be, what are we looking at, sort of March 2027?
Oh, I think it could be sooner. I think it could be before Christmas. I think you could have a December general election. I think that's quite plausible. And there'd be some advantage to Burnham doing that. And as you just point out, for all his flaws, he's not stupid when it comes to playing politics. He's a great survivor, isn't he? He came out of the shadow cabinet to run in Greater Manchester, which was a smart move on his part when Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, and now he's engineering himself to come back, and he's halfway to coming back. So he's not stupid at politics. There's no doubt about that. There is a scenario where he goes to the country before the end of the year.
And what about the idea that Burnham, for example, in the event of an election and a new Labour manifesto, pushes for PR? Do you think that might be part of Burnham's plan?
I think he has talked about that. It's an interesting point, actually. And that would be quite popular within the Parliamentary Labour Party. There will be a lot of advocates for changing the electoral system. And he would challenge Farage on this, because Reform and Farage have campaigned for proportional representation in the past. I think they've dropped it as a policy now, but they've certainly campaigned for it in the past. So he'd be challenging Reform to support that principle. That would make things very interesting. I don't support it. I've always been an advocate for first past the post, but that would really change politics, and it does suggest, you know, that sort of system suits where we are now politically. Lots of smaller parties involved in national politics, the Greens, the National Parties, Labour. It's not just two parties fighting it out, is it, anymore? And so it's a bit like on the continent, where you have more parties, where you end up with coalition governments, and that's what you'd have under PR.
What I think will happen is that I think that the progressive left will unite around the idea of changing the electoral system, because with a PR system, you're unlikely to ever have a robustly right-wing government ever again.
Yeah, that's
and we've seen that on the continent, which is why I believe it's a dying economic and social bloc.
Yes, I think you're exactly right.
You'll never have a Thatcher figure again to revolutionise things.
Yes, and
because they'll never have the majority.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that's a real worry at the next general election, whenever it may be, that we end up with a centre-left government or a coalition, a centre-left coalition, rather than a centre-right government or a centre-right coalition. That's the risk.
It is a real risk indeed. Rachel says, good morning, Mark and Simon. I'm enjoying your conversation about the chaos in the government. Like Simon, I can't believe the arrogance and audacity of Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester. I hope Reform give him a bloody nose. We don't need another deadbeat PM. And this from Frank in West Yorkshire. Hi, Mark. Reform should stand down and let Burnham win. That way Burnham goes on to scupper Starmer. Reform have more to lose by taking on Burnham than they have to gain. Play the clever move that will bamboozle Labour and do not burn Burnham. Well, that ain't going to happen, is it? Because old Nigel Farage, he's going to fight to the death in this seat.
Yeah. No, Reform couldn't stand down, as Frank suggests there. I mean, they'd lose all credibility. They have to come out fighting and throw everything at this and try and win it.
Have you bought a property in your life?
Yes, I have. Yes, I bought one or two. I've lost one or two to previous wives. Actually, I've bought and lost properties on a number of occasions.
Well, listen, we all make mistakes, don't we?
Absolutely.
And I know now that, by the way, is it second time lucky or third time lucky?
Third and final.
And I wish you and Mrs. Danchuk every happiness. She's a stunning lady, and congratulations to you. So, you know a thing or two about purchasing property.
Yes.
Do you think that if you hadn't paid your stamp duty, you'd be at the wrong end of the verdict of HMRC? Do you think that you would be treated with kid gloves in the way that the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner appears to have been?
I think she has been treated with kid gloves. I think HMRC would come down on you or I or anybody else like a ton of bricks, wouldn't they? And she's trying to spin it that she's got off with it. She hasn't got off with it. She's had to pay £40,000, which she should have paid in the first instance. And all the tax experts, never mind me or you, tax experts are saying in normal circumstances she would have had to pay a fine of about £8,000. And it sounds to me like the blob, which includes HMRC, have gone easy on her.
£40,000 is tax avoidance of the highest order.
Yeah, absolutely. She didn't want to pay it, did she? And she took advice, but she chose herself. She chose not to pay it, and she should have been fined for that. So I think they've gone easy on her, and I think it's a mark against her, to be quite honest.
A number of people think this stinks, and they're concerned about HMRC's handling of this.
Yeah, and how she gets a decision when she wants a decision, when you or I can't even ring up and get through to HMRC.
Good luck with that.
Yeah,
and when you finally get through, it'll be a very uncomfortable conversation if you owe them 40 grand.
Yeah.
And there'll be lots of letters coming in through the letterbox, which will be printed in red, saying final demand, as you say, plus a hefty fine. Yeah. Do you think, I mean, it's impossible for us to say, isn't it? Because HMRC are very clear they're politically neutral, but do you think that someone like Nigel Farage or Richard Tice would receive the same treatment from HMRC?
No, I do believe the blob is focused in left of centre direction. I truly believe that, and I have some experience of that myself. I think there's a real two-tier system when it comes to public service, and if you're on the centre right, then they're against you, and if you're on the centre left, they're more likely to be on your side.
And I know it's not explicitly the blob, but we saw that with the banking scandal, and the banks are part of the establishment. They're the corporate end of the blob, aren't they?
Oh yeah, no,
and they didn't like Nigel Farage, and they tried to debank him.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see this particular sectors, higher education, very woke, very much to the left. The publishing world, very much woke, very much to the left. But even people in banking against Nigel Farage, and that's been proven. The people on the left, I have to say, are much more aggressive, much more negative, much more nasty than people centre right. That's my experience of life and politics.
If Nigel Farage cannot defeat the candidate for the by-election in Makerfield, Andy Burnham, if they can keep Andy Burnham out of the House of Commons, who gets the top job? Is it Streeting? Is it Rayner? Is it Miliband? Or does Starmer cling on? 6:47, this is Talk Breakfast.
world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:50, happy Friday, one and all. Top of the morning to you, Mark Dolan on Talk Breakfast. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Here's a voice note from Sean.
Morning, Mark. Sean from Grimsby here. Now, I'm not from Makerfield, but if I was, I'd be a bit miffed off at the arrogance of Andy Burnham, who thinks he can just waltz in and run for MP of this place because he only wants to be Prime Minister. That's the only reason doing it, mate. You don't care about these people. I just hope Reform stand the right candidate, someone with integrity, someone who's strong, someone like Maggie Oliver. She would be the perfect fit, mate. But we'll see. Great show, mate.
Sean, thank you for that. Could this move by Andy Burnham backfire? He is a popular figure and a respected figure in North West, Simon Danchuk. But could the messaging of his decision to take this seat from a sitting Labour MP, could it backfire on him?
Oh, yeah, I think it could, and I'm with Sean on this. There is a real arrogance about Burnham putting himself forward. We are really, you know, a good proportion of the country, I think people in Makerfield need to realise this, are really praying that they make the right decision in this by-election, they vote in the correct way, and that is to give Burnham a bloody nose. And I think there's a good chance that that could happen. They won't be taken for fools. These are proper Lancashire folk, and they won't be messed about. And for all of Burnham's preening and, you know, position himself as true Labour values and the only person who can get rid of Starmer, for all of that, they will see through him, I think.
I'm just wondering, odds-wise, whether Burnham's chances of winning this seat would be based upon his local profile. What are we thinking? His chance of winning maybe 70-30 in his favour, would you say that?
I think
it's not quite 50-50, is it?
No. I think it's close, but I think the betting odds are just in his favour.
Yeah. So 60-40, yeah. 70-30, that sort of that territory.
And I have to say that the betting companies are rarely wrong on these things, I have to say. So it's going to be one heck of a fight. It's going to be really close.
The bookies never lose, do they?
No, they never lose. So I know.
I learned that to my
I've given up.
Eternal pain. And let's have another look now. This from Dan. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Simon. An excellent candidate for Reform for the by-election is sitting with you right now, Mark. Well, I completely agree. Dan, I've been saying this till I'm blue in the face, that Simon Danchuk, you should be running as a prospective parliamentary candidate for Reform UK at the next election, with your experience, your talent, your knowledge and your track record as an MP. What about this? Would you fancy having a crack at Makerfield?
Well, you know, I'd always do what was asked of me by Reform because I'm a great believer in public service, but I don't think I'm the right person to fight Makerfield, though it's very nice of Dan and yourself to think I might be. I think they need a good local person. I think Maggie Oliver would be great because she's from Greater Manchester, but if not Maggie, then a local person who, as one of the previous callers said, I think it was Sean, who's got integrity, who's well regarded in the local area. And the last candidate who fought it, I can't recall his name, but I think he's just been elected as a local councillor. He sounds like a possible good candidate.
And would you have the appetite to run yourself at the next general election?
Oh, I'd be prepared to run if Reform wanted me to.
Would you go back? Would you fight for your old seat?
Well, possibly, if that's what they wanted. I'd go back to Rochdale. But I think I'd go wherever they wanted me to go. And I'd like to make a contribution to politics in whatever way Nigel and others in the Reform thought I could make a contribution.
I think you're just the kind of ex-Labour figure that they need in their ranks, because there was much talk during the period of defections up till the May local elections that there was a significant figure from the Labour Party that was going to defect. It didn't happen.
I think who did come over was a former mayor of Newham, whose name escapes me. Yeah. He was a big beast in local Labour government, and he did come over. But you're right, they've never really had any significant ex-Labour MPs. I mean, Lee Anderson had been Labour before he went to the Conservatives, hadn't he?
Yes, and he's a sort of model candidate for Reform UK now.
Yeah,
working class, ex-miner, common sense opinions, ex-Labour, but now backing Reform.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of Reform. I do think it's a broad church in terms of who it attracts and the sort of people that come forward to fight for it. And the commonality between all of those people is that they can see that Britain is broken and it needs some radical solutions. That's why I'm Reform, because we need some radical solutions to the problems that Britain faces.
I completely agree. I'm glad you've used the word radical. I would use another R word as well, which is revolution. We need an economic, political and societal revolution.
Yeah, and we've not been getting that from the Uni Party, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, the economic revolution is to shrink the welfare state so it becomes a safety net again, not a lifestyle choice. Yeah. We need a societal revolution in which immigration is tied in with the expectation that you will integrate.
Yeah.
And we also need a political revolution in the establishment parties have just got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. They get sucked into this void at the centre of Westminster and all start thinking the same. And it has done the country no good at all over the last 20, 30 years.
It's obvious what the country needs, isn't it? My audience get it. My viewers get it. You know, I've got listeners and viewers of the show who are struggling financially on a daily basis. They understand that they cannot spend more than comes in.
Yeah.
And yet they are governed by an administration that do exactly that. And considering a replacement to Starmer who's going to spend even more.
Yeah, and that's why we, as a country, we're in the position that we are in, and that's why our politics are in such disarray, because the public have had enough. You know, and Labour won in the 2024 general election, not because the people wanted a Labour government, they just wanted rid of the Conservatives. Where else could they go? And there was no real Reform alternative then, but there is now.
And we are paying the price, aren't we, for the punishment beating of the Tories in July 2024. Yes, they were terrible, but my goodness, things are worse now.
Far worse. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it puts the Conservatives in a good light.
It really does, and that's going some.
Yeah.
This from Neil. Good morning, Mark. Hello, Simon. Am I the only one who thinks that this debacle is taking us, the electorate, for mugs? A new leader has no mandate to lead our country. And another Dan says, Mark and Simon, Labour's biggest mandate at the last election was not to be like the Tories and not changing leaders every other day. Remember the slogan, the grown-ups are back in the room? The new leader will be slaughtered every week at Prime Minister's Questions and by the media for sheer and utter hypocrisy. Having a look at the other runners and the riders, Dan, where are we at with Wes Streeting? Do you think he's handled this well so far?
I think he has handled it quite well. The suggestion is that he didn't have the numbers to challenge Starmer. He needed 80 or 81.
81, yeah.
Yeah, and the argument is that he just did not have those numbers. So by doing this resignation letter, by resigning, he's played it quite well. He's called for a long leadership election, which involves Andy Burnham, and so he's left the door open for perhaps a coalition with Burnham if Burnham does get through, and if he doesn't, then he's got a better shot at it himself.
Yeah, he sounds like he's calculated. He thinks that Burnham will likely re-enter the House of Commons and win the race, and he's already getting ready for a top job in the Burnham administration.
Yes, exactly. I think that's exactly right, and that's why he's played it quite well. And he's not that popular in the party. That's the problem Streeting has. He's just not that popular. He's to the centre right. He's also now got the whole murky stuff around being close to Mandelson associated with him, which makes him even less less popular. So I think he's played it quite well.
I know, and he's reduced the waiting list of the NHS by literally just deleting names from it, which is something you and I could do, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. He's not daft, isn't Streeting, and I think he does have some talent. But, you know, he can play a long game. He's a young guy as well. Do you know what I mean? He could easily take over from Burnham if he was Prime Minister.
Well, let me tell you, Simon Danchuk, always the greatest privilege to have you in the studio. Cannot wait for your return here to Talk Towers. Lots more to come. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour?
This journey of me following migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy.
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 7, top of the morning. This is Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very big show this morning. I hope you're well. Happy Friday, one and all. Breaking this morning, will it be third time lucky for Andy Burnham as the King of the North seeks to become the political king of the country? Meanwhile, Starmer's allies turn on the Prime Minister, with Ed Miliband, once a Sir Keir loyalist, now plotting his boss's downfall, and with Starmerite MP Josh Simon vacating his seat for the Greater Manchester Mayor. But can Andy Burnham win an election in the North West? And is he taking voters for granted? Is this more Labour arrogance? Now, standing in Andy Burnham's way is Nigel Farage, who may be able to do Starmer a favour by selecting a candidate that can beat him in Makerfield. Meanwhile, a miracle has happened. Angela Rayner has settled her dispute with HMRC. Perfect timing. How convenient. But would we receive the same kind treatment from the tax authorities if we hadn't paid our stamp duty? Something about this stinks. We've got the inside story. And as this political beauty contest turns ugly, Wes thinks that he's streetings ahead. So who wins the top prize? Or does Starmer cling on? Now, my question to you is a simple one this morning. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 0344 499 1000 is my phone number. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, I'm delighted to say that you can hear us on DAB+, in-app and online. You can also watch the show, which a growing number of people are doing in their tens of thousands. So, to see the show and to watch Dolan's Dispatch and to see my amazing guests, head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Directing our TV output this morning, the brilliant Luke. Taking your calls, the fabulous Tommy. Pressing the buttons, the one and only Sam, the boss this morning. Arguably the most experienced producer in commercial speech radio, Christian Mitchell, which is why our numbers are through the roof. Thank you to everyone that watches and listens to Talk Breakfast. The only way is up. Can a new Prime Minister save Labour? Let's kick off with a voice note from Damon.
Good morning, Mark. Damon from Wigan. Another fantastic tie. There is no way on this earth Andy Burnham is going to win Makerfield. It's impossible because the British people in Makerfield will not let him. They won't forgive him. And at the end of the day, why is Burnham seen as this white knight who's going to become Prime Minister and solve all the world's problems? He's in for a very rough ride because 24 out of 25 councils went to reform, and we want reform in this area.
Damon, thank you so much for that. Thank you for your common sense voice note there. I agree with every syllable. Thank you for your kind remarks about my tie. You'll only know what I'm wearing if you head to Talk. Don't worry, I'm wearing something. I mean, this is a family show. I'm wearing a certain tie. Check it out. It's on YouTube at Search Talk and Up We Pop. Talk's international editor is Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning, Isabel.
Good morning.
Nigel Farage is invested for two reasons in winning this forthcoming by-election in Makerfield, isn't he? The first would be the feather in his cap of defeating Labour yet again, another sitting Reform MP. The other great prize is keeping Andy Burnham, a talented politician, out of number 10.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed that Andy Burnham has gone for this particular seat because I think there's a decent chance he's going to lose it. This is eminently winnable for Reform. Reform came second in the seat in 2024 in the general election. I don't personally know the candidate, but I do know that the leadership, the party leadership, didn't throw huge resources at that constituency because it was never considered particularly winnable. And of course, that was a snap election and was long before Reform had anything like the formidable election fighting machine and the money that the party has now, and the sheer level of activists that will now descend on that constituency. And I know I've been listening to a number of contributors this morning on Talk who've said, look, Andy Burnham isn't that popular. And it chimes with a message I had from a contact of mine who lives in the area last night, who said, hearing Andy Burnham being called King of the North makes us laugh in the North. He ruined Manchester Centre and no one likes him. So I don't think this is necessarily going to play out the way that Andy Burnham is hoping.
And if he doesn't win this by-election, well, he's politically toast, is he not?
I think it is very difficult. I was just wondering before we came on air whether if he was defeated, could he then sort of chicken run to another constituency? I just don't. It doesn't work. The time frame doesn't work. It's over. So this is a very, very high stakes gamble. And I think another reason why it would be brilliant for Reform if they could defeat him is something that you were talking about earlier on your show, which is the prospect of proportional representation. Now, Reform long wanted proportional representation in different times and has very openly campaigned for it in the past, thinking that it was the only way that the party could actually get fair representation at Westminster, having repeatedly secured millions of votes, whether it was as Reform or as different iterations of Brexit Party, whatever it might have been, and not actually found that that converted into seats at Westminster. And Andy Burnham is known to be very pro-proportional representation. However, now Reform is a very different beast and is leading in all the polls. I think that could be quite awkward for Nigel Farage and the party, because actually, if there were to be a change to the voting system, that would probably deny Reform the chance to lead a government. Not necessarily, but it makes it a lot more difficult. So ironically, at this point, Reform probably isn't too keen on proportional representation and therefore has even more reason to see off Andy Burnham. Now, whether Burnham, if he does succeed, could somehow bring in PR without any kind of referendum, I don't know. I don't think you'd have to have a referendum. Of course, you'd have to have legislation. But it probably would go through.
And that's a real worry. This is in wafer-thin majority territory, isn't it? With Makerfield having gone to Labour with a majority of 5,399. That was before, as you've said, Reform had the resources to find a strong local candidate. So with the right person running for that seat, it's all to play for. I mean, could this be a 50-50 outcome, do you think?
Well, just to be clear, I think Reform had a really good candidate, actually. Really strong local candidate. Believe that he's a gas fitter, very connected to the area. I don't know who the party plans to select this time round, whether it's the same gentleman, but I think he ran an amazing campaign. The figures speak for themselves. He got over 12,000 votes. That was a sitting Labour seat. You know, the Labour Party had held the seat before, and now 5,300 majority is nothing these days. I mean, Reform candidates have been overcoming massive majorities that would have been considered totally insurmountable in previous times. So I would say 5,300 is actually, in these times, a pretty marginal seat.
Yes, of course, the person you mentioned, that strong candidate, was Robert Kenyon. We've had a look, haven't we, at Andy Burnham's political journey as a new Labourite and a cabinet minister under Gordon Brown. Then he shifts leftwards and effectively presents himself as a left-wing candidate. This guy is a political grifter, isn't he? And in my view, a preening narcissist that if he was made of chocolate, he'd eat himself. Prove me wrong.
Okay, that's really, really harsh. I have known Andy Burnham since before he was even a junior minister in Gordon Brown's and Tony Blair's days. And he's a really decent bloke.
And he's a horrible charlatan, isn't he?
No, he isn't a horrible charlatan. I'm going to push back on that. I think he's a fun...
You can't go from being a sort of Blairite sort of protege to supporting Jeremy Corbyn.
He wasn't a Blairite protege, so you've got that wrong.
Well, he served in the new Labour administration as health secretary.
He was not a Blairite protege. He was a junior minister initially. He rose to become a pretty decent health secretary, not stellar, but he was decent enough. He is a fundamentally nice guy. He's not wooden like Keir Starmer. He's relatable. I think that he's got quite a lot of talents, actually. I happen to think his politics are totally wrong, and I would... Mark,
this isn't the House of Commons.
That diminishes...
You can't control my language here, Isabel. I don't trust the guy. I think he's a charlatan.
Well...
I think he's a fraud.
I think that diminishes our politics to bandy around words like that. He is not...
Looking at his track record.
He's ambitious. Now, there's no crime in being ambitious, and show me a politician that doesn't secretly think that they could lead the country. And now he is trying to maneuver his way to the top. And you have pushed me into a position where I'm now giving a rallying cry for Andy Burnham, and that is not what I want to do. So I'm going to temper it.
Well, I'm just a bit tired of this whole he's a nice guy, fundamentally he's a good man rubbish, because that's what we've had from Keir Starmer, where all of those Labour insiders are saying, well, fundamentally Keir's a good man. No, he's not. He's a duplicitous liar.
Well,
I'm sick of hearing that these people are good men. No, they're not.
I'm sick of you interrupting me at this point, and I would like to have my say. Thank you. I don't actually think Keir Starmer is that good a man, but I am going to contrast that with Andy Burnham, who I do think is a good man. However, Mark, he is not a top-flight politician. He is B-list. He's probably B-minus list. I put him in the same bracket as Sadiq Khan. I actually much prefer Andy Burnham to Sadiq Khan.
We can agree on that.
Never top
He's
flight
like Winston Churchill compared to Sadiq Khan.
These were never top flight politicians in Labour administrations. Andy tried to run for the leadership back in 2010. He was rejected. He has never troubled the top tier until now. And I think this myth of the King of the North, I think that is going to be punctured and shattered very, very quickly. When did you last go to Manchester? The place is an absolute... I want to use words that I can't use on the radio. I love Manchester, by the way. I think it's a great city. But anyone that goes there and hangs around there for very long at all will see that that place is riddled with problems. Crime, homelessness, drugs. It is an absolute mess of that once great city. So let's see how his actual record stacks up. And hopefully you and I won't have to have a fractious conversation about whether he's a con man or not if we just look at his records.
Well, Isabel, listen, I respect your judgment unreservedly, and if you're telling me that you know the guy personally and he is a good man who's in politics for the right reasons, I will acknowledge that, and that will colour my view of the Mayor of Greater Manchester. But I just feel that there's an element of Emperor's new clothes about this guy. The great white hope for Labour, I'm not buying it.
I'm very happy to agree with you on that. I'm hoping to get someone...
Fool's gold.
I think that's fair enough. I don't think he's a fool, but those who think he's King of the North might be fools. Let's get some reporters up to the constituency that he plans to run in. Let's see what they think of him there. Let's have a really hard look at what he's actually achieved in Manchester, and then let's see if that is the calibre of person that is fit for fixing the most appalling problems that are affecting our country right now.
I mean, let me give you a personal story about Andy Burnham. And I was on air during the pandemic. I was hosting the drive time show, Isabel. And from day one, I called out the madness of lockdowns. And I'm delighted to say that you and I were allied on that. You used your various journalistic platforms to point out we were never going to stop this nasty virus. The economic damage, the solution for COVID was worse than the illness itself. And I think history has judged that quite well. There was one particular occasion in which I chopped up one of those filthy, scientifically empty, horribly polluting face masks on the drive time show, which led to an international global viral video. Andy Burnham was booked to come on the show the very next day. He cancelled his appearance because of my decision to cut up a worthless scientific mask. This is a guy that didn't have the backbone to face up to a TV host who was calling out the madness of COVID.
Now you're talking, Mark. Have you got some more examples of that? Because if you do, then you and I might be a little bit more aligned.
I mean, what a wimp that he can't face me the day after I've chopped up a mask and broken the internet.
Well, I would have hugged you the day after you did that, because you only need to mention those damn masks to send my blood pressure soaring. What a joke they were.
And I get a message from Burnham's office saying the Mayor will not be appearing on Mark Dolan's show. I was effectively cancelled by the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Also, Piers Morgan tried to get me sacked, but he was unsuccessful.
Well, we could relitigate a lot of woes during the pandemic. You know, I can tell you, Mark, that I was blacklisted from appearing on the BBC for the full 18-month duration
Ridiculous.
of the so-called health emergency. Extraordinary. I was not invited onto any BBC programmes when I used to do those very, very regularly. So, yeah, those were appalling times. Burnham was signed up to all that mask-wearing twaddle and the lockdowns and so on. But I actually think I'm much more concerned about his record, his genuine record in Manchester is not going to withstand scrutiny, you know.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Isabel, what sort of candidate do you think Reform should be looking at to fight this seat? It is so politically significant, not just for Reform, but for the country. Do you think they go for a big name like Zia Youssef or a respected local figure like Robert Kenyon, who, as you've said, was so successful in 2024?
Well, I don't know what the plan is. I do know that they were already working really hard on it last night. As soon as it was announced, Reform HQ was all over this and plotting and planning and working out how to flood that constituency with activists and what the party can offer the people up there. My guess would be that they will stick with the strong local candidate. As I say, want to emphasise that's just me guessing. I think that the experience of Gorton and Denton, where Matt Goodwin, who has been London-based largely, went to fight that, and he ran such a good campaign. No one could have worked harder, and he didn't quite make it. May have led to some thinking about whether or not it's better to have somebody who's fully embedded already in the area. So that would be my guess. I don't think that the party would probably think it was a great plan to sort of parachute someone in. Then again, of course, Zia would be an absolutely amazing candidate. So who knows? That's above my pay grade. I keep out of that.
Of course. What about a figure like Maggie Oliver, retired police officer who was so instrumental in calling out the grooming gangs? Is that sort of figure somebody that could be successful?
I think that's such an interesting idea. I heard, I think it was Simon earlier on mentioning her, or somebody else mentioned her. I mean, I think without sort of saying whether she would be a great candidate or not, because I just don't know personally. Of course, she's been an incredible campaigner for those causes. I do think that Andy Burnham has a lot of potential challenge coming up in relation to those grooming gangs. Again, I'm not fully up to speed on what it is, but a number of people have mentioned to me that he may have a questionable record there. That surprises me. Again, I would have thought he would care passionately about that sort of thing. But it may be that, you know, his critics can come up with a case that he is in some way enmeshed in that, in which case Maggie Oliver would be a brilliant critic. But I wouldn't go into any more detail than that because I'm not fully on top of that.
Isabel, always a joy to have you on the show. I look forward to catching up soon, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation about Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester and hopeful in this by-election in Makersfield, which will likely happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that could be a July by-election. Who wins? Here's a voice note from Tony.
Hi, Mark. It's Tony from Hampshire. Great show. Just in regards to your question, would a new Labour leader transform the party? No, not for me. When you look at the candidates, Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner, it's a no-no for me. They're all really people in Starmer's image, but in different ways, if you like. It'd be even more dangerous, in my opinion. I think the star of the show with politics at the moment is Kemi Badenoch, but unfortunately, I don't think she's got the party around her to form a new government if there was a general election. I want to vote for Reform, but I really need to see some meat on the bones with their policies. That's my only reservation with them. Great show, Mark, and I couldn't agree more with you about Andy Burnham. He's just an opportunist. Take care.
Tony, top man, thank you for your brilliant voice note. Keep them coming. Vinny says, so Burnham can keep his mayor job if he loses. Surely that's not right. Bill in Romsey has a view on Angela Rayner and her stamp duty. Hi, Mark. Our Ange left the government because of unpaid tax. She got a £17,000 payoff. Does she pay that back now? Bill, I suspect not. Andy in Hull. Mark, if I'm a day late with my tax return, I am fined. End of story. Thank you, Andy. Peter, Mark, you've got an old school tie on today. I'm surprised you haven't broken any equipment in the studio. No, I've been really well behaved because I'm on my best behaviour because the excellent Sam is our engineer today, and I get in big trouble if I do stuff like that. They don't like it, do they? And what about this, though? Serious point, says Peter. Surely Burnham must resign his post as mayor in order to run for an MP's job. What do you think? Is Andy Burnham taking us for fools? Is he taking voters for granted? Is this an arrogant move to parachute himself into a Labour seat? Let me know your thoughts. And will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Well, I'll be asking a top Labour insider next. It is 7:24. This is Talk Breakfast.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. It is 7:28. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Who better to ask than an old friend of mine, former Labour Special Advisor, broadcaster and journalist Paul Richards. Good morning, Paul. Been too long. Are you well, sir?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. What do you think? That's our question today. Can a new PM save the Labour project?
Well, the most boring thing I'm going to say of the day is, of course, there isn't a contest, Mark. There is no Labour leadership contest. Everyone's talking about candidates, but Starmer's still there.
Have you been on holiday?
Here. I've been campaigning. I've been out knocking on lots and lots of doors. If you're referring to my beautiful tan.
Well, you do have a lovely tan, but I just wonder whether if you think there's no contest, then you're living on another planet.
Listen,
it's already started, Paul.
I mean, I'm not saying there won't be in the future, of course. I'm not daft. But
have you not spoken to Wesley Streeting? He thinks there's a contest.
There isn't one right now. Well, he hasn't put it forward, though, has he? I mean, when I say this, then there is a serious point, which is he has not come forward with 81 names is what you need to trigger a contest. Starmer said he's not resigning, so there's not a contest for that reason. And Andy Burnham, who I'm sure we're about to talk about, is not an MP. So there's a lot of moving parts in this, and at the moment there is no contest at all. We're getting on with the debate around the King's speech. However, if we want to indulge a little bit of speculation, then Andy Burnham may well find himself, it's quite difficult to see all of the hurdles that he has to overcome in time, because he's got to not only get through the National Executive Committee's officers group, a formidable bunch of people who decided not to endorse him last time because it would trigger a by-election in the Greater Manchester mayoralty, which they feared would just hand Manchester to reform. Then he's got to stand in this seat, Makerfield, which Josh Simons has just relinquished after nearly 2 years. And the figures are not good for that either. It could well be that reform pull off a dramatic by-election coup and stop him at that level too. Then he's got to be elected as the leader of the Labour Party. And there are other candidates that will come forward, like Wes, as you mentioned. Oh, blimey. And then finally, he's got to be elected as the Prime Minister. So, a lot of hurdles down the line. I mean, fair play to the guy for trying. It'll be third attempt at becoming leader of the Labour Party. But, let's see.
Are you irritated with his manoeuvring?
I'm absolutely despairing of the last sort of 72 hours in the history of the Labour Party. It's so unedifying. I mean, I have been, whenever I've had the opportunity, apologising to the British people for this spectacle, because it really is inward looking. And it soaks up so much psycho energy that people are just going, yeah, great, but what about the waiting list for the hospital? What about the potholes? And it's a really bad look. I mean, I was imploring Labour colleagues all of last week just to pull back from the edge, staring into the precipice, just pull back, which, by the way, we can still do. But I just think the public are going, well, we voted in various different ways on Thursday, which seems like a long time ago now.
It does.
But the thing we were saying is not turn inwards into a contest where you talk to yourselves and have a so-called battle of ideas with each other. That's not what the public was telling us on Thursday in those local elections and in Wales and Scotland. They were saying, get on with the change. And we've just decided to do the thing the Labour Party loves best of all, which is to have a big row with itself.
That's right. I mean, Labour are worse than the Tories now, aren't they?
Well, I think our constitution, the way the rules work, it makes it much harder to defenestrate a prime minister. We don't have a sort of 1922 committee or a men in grey suits and all of that. Letters to the chief whip. Don't have any of that process.
You don't have a Graham Brady. Do you want to maybe bring Graham Brady in to sort this out?
Well, I mean, I don't know if he's available, maybe, but I just think, we actually, I mean, the serious point here is we changed the rules to stop spurious attempts to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister. So we put the ceiling up to 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party. If it was still 10%, of course, the Socialist Campaign Group would have been able to trigger a leadership contest last week. So that's why they made it harder, but it does make it more unedifying, and we play all this out in public, and I just despair that people are thinking, yeah, but what about us?
Well, Paul, I think that there may be an area upon which we can agree, because if I look at the alternatives to the incumbent, I'm looking at Angela Rayner, who has now settled her dispute with HMRC, but I'm concerned that she would shift the policy agenda leftwards, which, given the fact that the country's in the red, I believe is dangerous. You've got Ed Miliband, who, if he becomes Prime Minister, will double down on net zero. You've got Wes Streeting, who I don't think really has got a chance of winning the leadership, given that he's on the right of the party. And Andy Burnham, who I'm on record as saying I believe is something of a political charlatan. I agree with Isabel Oakeshott. He's not a liar. He's not a fraud or a con man, but I just think he's very inconsistent. I think he's an opportunist. So could we perhaps agree, Paul, that the least bad option is to keep Keir Starmer?
Well, a lot of MPs, are not putting public statements out, but are privately telling me and others that that is actually the best option right now because, for all the reasons of stability that Number 10 have been putting out and the need to not to chop and change. I mean, there is a sizable chunk of people who say, look, now is not the right time. There is some truth in that. I mean, on Andy, I've known him. Well, we were sort of young Blairite parliamentary researchers together back in the 90s, and it was a long time ago. And he, I don't think he's inconsistent. I think he is a great survivor, and of course, he's adapted to the different political situations he's found himself. I totally disagree with Isabel on Manchester. I think he's done a fantastic job in Greater Manchester, particularly with the transport system. And I go there frequently. We had our summer holidays in Manchester last year, believe it or not, and it's
Nice.
a fantastic place. And he is largely, not wholly, but largely responsible for that. And it's got growth. I mean, economic growth in the Northwest, unlike other bits of the country that feel left behind. So, I think he can stand on his record in Greater Manchester. But to win this by-election in Wigan, in Makerfield, is an enormously tall order. And I would say that we're going to spend all this time poring over the results of the last general election and the council elections in that part of the world. But the past is no predictor to the future in a by-election, as you well know, Mark. People behave in entirely different ways. They'll vote in entirely different ways to the ways they did for the locals or the candidate in the general. Because it's a by-election, because it's Andy, because it's the media circus will arrive in town, and so you just do not know what's going to happen in that election. And he may storm it if he becomes the candidate. He may not be selected as the candidate. It may be that the NEC lets him go forward and the local members select somebody else. We just don't know. So many variables, so many unknowns.
I think there's a big difference between you and Andy Burnham. I've known you for many years, Paul. You are very ideologically consistent, and Andy Burnham is not. It's my view that he will say whatever he needs to say to win power and to pursue his ambition of becoming Prime Minister. He's had 2 cracks at the Labour leadership. He's hoping it's third time lucky. Andy Burnham is all about Andy Burnham, isn't he?
No, I disagree with that caricature. And I heard your back and forth, shall we call it, with Isabel.
Very rare for Isabel to get it wrong. I don't know what happened. She got it wrong today. I guess we all have a bad day at the office.
Well, she was astonishingly sort of coming out as a sort of cheerleader for Andy Burnham, which I thought was a slightly
occasionally with Isabel, you get the odd misstep. She can't always get it right, I suppose.
I don't believe that for a minute, but I think she was being fair-minded, and I'm not sure you are actually, Mark. I don't think he's.
I am so reasonable you wouldn't believe. I'm actually too reasonable.
I don't think he's any of those words that you ascribe to him. I think he is a survivor. I think he's got strong values. He's somebody who's done fantastic things in Greater Manchester, actually affecting real change. A lot of politicians just talk about stuff, but he has got a track record now of things. And of course, he's not universally popular, which politician is, but he is somebody who does cut through. People have heard of him. Can I just throw in a wild card, though?
Go for it.
Al Qaeda.
I thought you were going to say Al Qaeda. It's like, well,
well, he's the guy that took Al Qaeda on, isn't he?
Al Qaeda are very. So Al Qaeda. So he's a big figure within the party. Tell me about him.
Well, he's a former Special Forces colonel and brigadier. He's somebody who's done 5 tours of Afghanistan with the commando. I mean, somebody who is absolutely solid in terms of defence and security. He's a Labour MP only since 2024, and he said that if there's a contest, he will stand. So, as we know in politics, sometimes the wild card or the dark horse is the one to watch. And he would be rather interesting, I feel. So I'm just going to put that on the table. There you go.
Well, definitely. And look, I'm going to be nice about Labour for a second, and I'm
that long.
I know. Well, who knows, right? But it's 7:37 in the morning, and I'm very, very comfortable with moderate figures in the Labour Party, common sense folk like your good self, Paul, who understand the complexities of government, the complexities of policy. I look at issues like immigration, and I applaud the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood's efforts to improve how it works with indefinite leave to remain, that you wait 10 years rather than 5, and that you must pass an integration test, learn the language, have an income. These are all brilliant policies. All of that is going to go up in smoke if there's a new Prime Minister.
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, this is the policy. This is in the King's speech. This is the legislation going through.
Well, Burnham will axe it, won't he? Burnham will axe it, and so will Big Ange.
I'm not sure about that actually.
Really?
Well, I don't think Angela's even going to stand, to be absolutely honest, because I
Really?
think she'd be dipping in the same soft left pool as Andy Burnham.
Right.
I mean, Shabana Mahmood, by the way, chairs the NEC committee that will be deciding whether or not Andy Burnham gets to be a candidate. So that's an interesting bit of politics there, whether she'll want him to come in or not. I don't know. Have they done a deal? Have they not? No, but the policy on getting sorting out the immigration mess has to be a priority for whoever comes in, if indeed anyone does, because it may well be Starmer.
Well, I think it's a wonderful policy from Labour. I think it's a wonderful, brilliant policy from this Labour government. I will applaud it to the rafters. I'm worried that it's endangered, though. If Starmer goes, so does that policy. The backbenchers hate it. Big Ange said it's un-British.
Well, there's nothing more British than having to learn to speak English, I would say. And I can remember Labour ministers saying this in the Blair government. I mean, the one I worked for, Hazel Blair, said this out loud on some radio interview and got terrible shtick for it. But of course, being able to speak English is a prerequisite, and of course that allows people into the labour market and into society and all the rest of it. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, there's nothing particularly un-Labour about saying if people arrive in this country, then let's teach them English and make sure they can integrate.
You're talking so much sense, but unfortunately there are Labour backbenchers that think all of that is far right. Paul, before I let you go, we got a tweet. Of course, it used to be Twitter, it's now X, but a tweet from 2022 during the Conservative leadership race, and it was from Andy Burnham, who posted the following: "We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. They were all elected on a manifesto promise to level up the North and are all abandoning it." So if Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, do you think he's obliged to call a general election?
Absolutely not, 100%. In the British Constitution,
Paul, it's all going so
British Constitution,
you were good
are
for 5
elected
minutes.
for a term. Swapping a Prime Minister does not trigger a general election in the British system. I am a fan of our Constitution. I'm sure you are too. And the Constitution is very clear that you do not trigger a general election by changing a Prime Minister. Imagine if that was true. We had 4 Tory Prime Ministers, one after the other. Imagine there'd been a general election. One of the great demands of the Chartists, was an annual election, a general election every year. Thank God they didn't succeed in that demand. I think we have quite enough general elections. Thank you very much.
Paul, it's such a delight to have you on the show again. Really missed our conversations. Look forward to catching up soon. No doubt it will be very soon because it's all happening over at Number 10. Paul Richards, former Labour Special Advisor. What do you think? If Burnham wins, should there be an immediate general election? 03444991000. Can a new Prime Minister save this Labour project? Lots more to come. When is this by-election going to happen? And who's going to win? That's next. It is 7:41. This is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast, 7:43. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Jeff in Dorset, who's a veteran. Hello, Jeff. Thank you for your service to this country. He says, good morning, Mark. This Burnham standing is a delaying tactic for Starmer. Starmer will hang on and hope that the debacle will fade away. It is all a political smokescreen. Well, let's get further analysis on this from Times Radio's top political reporter, Ollie Cole, who is at number 10. Good morning, Ollie.
Hi there, Mark.
It's not a given, is it, Ollie, that Andy Burnham wins this by-election?
Look, there are so many hurdles for Andy Burnham to get through in order to return to Westminster. That seat of Makerfield is a very, very, very tightly contested one. Reform UK came second in the election for Josh Simons, the current Labour MP there, with only about sort of 5,500 to 6,000 votes in it. Reform UK are going to throw a lot of resources at that seat. In a way, that is the fight that Andy Burnham's team says he wants. He wants to prove that this is basically a concept that can work, that he is a Labour figure who can take on Reform and win in a difficult area. Now, what's going to be interesting about it, of course, is that, both of the slogans, for Reform UK, it's going to be, vote Reform, get Starmer out, as we saw at the local elections. But also, Andy Burnham's going to be pretty much running on that ticket as well. Vote Labour and get the Prime Minister gone. So it's going to be a really interesting by-election in terms of campaign, in terms of how the resources are thrown at it. And it is going to be a really, really difficult one. Then Andy Burnham's obviously got to turn up to Parliament and get all the support of the backbenchers.
Now, Josh Simon is a former Starmer loyalist who helped the Prime Minister win power. You've got Ed Miliband, who is reportedly plotting against his boss now. Does it look like the sharks are circling for the Prime Minister?
Yeah, look, there feels like there's an inevitability to all of this, doesn't there? I mean, essentially you have, at the moment, every day, Keir Starmer wakes up in the building behind me, behind the black door of number 10, and is Prime Minister. And that will be true until it isn't. But there is a reality and narrative setting in the Labour Party. Even certain people, certain figures who signed that letter backing Keir Starmer earlier this week, put out statements publicly yesterday saying Andy Burnham should not be blocked from running in this by-election. That is a very, very clear sign. It shows that the Labour Parliamentary Party are ready for a change. They want an open contest. They don't want it to look like a stitch-up. That's sort of why Wes Streeting took a step back yesterday and said, actually, if we don't let Andy Burnham run in this and I become leader without him being in the frame, there's a possibility that this infighting just goes on for another 2 years of any other Labour premiership. And so that essentially needs to run its course. Andy Burnham needs to get back to Westminster, and if he does, it's pretty clear that even the people most loyal to Starmer, not necessarily around the cabinet table, but within the Labour Parliamentary Party, the man, Josh Simons, like you said, who was one of the key figures in the Starmerite project, one of the protégés of Morgan McSweeney, his former Chief of Staff, is essentially setting this up as it is time to stand down. It is time for that timetable to set its way out.
Most definitely. Now, Nigel Farage has a double motivation for winning this by-election, doesn't he, Ollie? One, a feather in his cap, another Reform UK Member of Parliament. He'd also like to keep Andy Burnham out of number 10 because Andy Burnham is better at politics than Keir Starmer.
Yeah, and look, there is. It's quite interesting if you sort of watch Nigel Farage talking about certain political figures. It's always interesting what he says about them in terms of their character. For example, he's very aware that even though he disagrees with someone like Angela Rayner on pretty much every political policy going, he will always say that she is a very real person and she is a very real communicator. Now, Andy Burnham is a bit more sort of naturally political in that field. He sort of worked under Blair and Brown and is sort of baked into Labour's Labour's political history in that sense. But he is one of those figures who can speak plainly on issues, who can speak to public services quite well, who can connect with voters out in the street, who does have a great popularity in the country. Now, part of that popularity, of course, is because he's not a Westminster figure, and that's part of the reason why Nigel Farage has seen such popularity in recent years. But like you say, Nigel Farage has a huge incentive here, because if he can keep Keir Starmer in power for as long as possible, you know, the idea of reform winning the next general election, in his mind, comes closer. So they are going to throw everything at that seat. You've got the Greens, who are probably going to have a damn good go at it as well. And, you know, you've got a Labour campaign, essentially, where all of the party's resources are going to have to be thrown at fighting a by-election, which inevitably will end, if they're successful, in them getting rid of their leader.
And this can happen quite quickly, can't it? It's my understanding, Ollie Cole, that given that this seat has now been vacated by Josh Simons, there could be a by-election in 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks tops.
Yeah, so essentially you've got to have the government whip who moves the writ for the by-election, so basically sort of puts it in place and gets the ball rolling. And, you know, you've got then the weeks ahead. In 8 weeks, like you say, we could essentially have a Labour leadership election on the cards. How long that Labour leadership election would take is also an interesting thing. Keir Starmer's allies say that, you know, he is entitled to and will fight that leadership election. Now, that will be interesting, because it will essentially mean that you've got the Prime Minister of the day going up and down the country, speaking to Labour members and trying to convince them that he's the man to lead the party, while also supposedly trying to run the country. So that, you know, looks a little bit farcical in a way. But you've got that contest to play out. The last Labour leadership contest took about 3 months. I'm pretty sure that the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party, who meets next Tuesday, will be keen that that takes place as swiftly as possible, and this looks as clean as possible.
Ollie, we will come back to you before the morning is out. Thank you so much for your thoughts on where we stand in regard to the leadership of this country, the position of the Prime Minister. Ollie Cole is a political reporter for Times Radio. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Here's a voice note from Graham.
Hello, Mark. Graham from Portsmouth. Just to pick up on something you said earlier regarding David Miliband, and had he won the leadership in 2015, they might have won the election. No, they wouldn't. The Conservatives weren't expecting to win a majority. They were expecting a hung parliament. The only reason they won is because they were the only party promising a referendum on leaving the EU. The establishment couldn't see that. Then when they had the referendum, they didn't see the result coming. We told them again in 2019, and they still don't see it. And now Starmer loses all these seats in local elections to the Reform Party, who are very much leave the EU, not anti, but not leave the EU, and stop the boats. And he didn't even manage to mention the boats. They just haven't got a clue. Great show. Thank you.
It's a fair point. And of course, that Brexit referendum was a decisive policy on the part of Cameron, which saw an unexpected victory in 2015. It's a fair point, and thank you for making it. Keep those voice notes coming. Will a new leader save Labour? And is Andy Burnham taking voters for granted? Is this move arrogant? 7:51, this is Talk Breakfast.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:54. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Who better to ask than the legendary journalist, former Sky News presenter, ex-broadcaster from CNBC, Fox News and ITV, Linda Jubilee. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Mark.
Well, what do we think about this? First of all, this by-election, Andy Burnham's got his work cut out to win it, hasn't he? Given the fact that Reform had 31.8% of the vote share in 2024, the majority's 5,500. That's wafer thin.
It's not exactly wafer thin, but it is a declining majority. That's the problem. This used to be one of the safest seats in the country, and now clearly it is not.
But Labour get 5,500 majority in their pomp in July of 2024. It's gone downhill since then.
And it's gone down a lot since then. So it is a problem. Now, I think, according to the renowned psephologist Sir John Curtis, if Andy Burnham was not put forward to fight this seat, they would only have a 5% chance of winning.
Wow.
So it's clear that they have to insert Andy Burnham into this race. That's not the issue here, because that's almost certainly going to happen.
Yeah.
The thing is that once he's selected, then he has a fight on his hands, because undoubtedly Reform will throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at this fight, because they want to show that they can win in this area. They want to show that they can get rid of Keir Starmer, and they want to show that they can keep Andy Burnham out of Westminster. So they will be throwing everything at it. It's interesting to think of who they might choose as a candidate, because they don't have the kind of candidate machinery that the other two major parties and the Libs, oh, that was a slip of the tongue, the three other major parties have at their disposal, which is a long existing way of choosing candidates. You get the candidates on a list or in a group, and you select from that pool. Now, Reform won't have that. But what they can do, and what I believe they should do in this seat, is they should either choose a really, really high-profile campaigner or some kind of serious celebrity, someone who has an existing profile with the voter, or they go for a truly, truly local candidate and say that we're the party that believes in being resonant with you, truly resonant and authentic with you. Here's our local person. It was mentioned to me last night that Maggie Oliver, the renowned campaigner on behalf of vulnerable girls who were abused by the rape gangs up north, she would be the kind of person who would be absolutely ideal. You know, a former police officer, leadership skills, she can get the community around her. She stands for a very, very important subject up in her area. She would be ideal. So I think Reform will be up there. They've already said that they started now. Their campaign has started last night. It'll be a very, very interesting and a long, hard fight for Andy Burnham to get to Westminster as an MP.
There's going to be a tension, isn't there? Because Andy Burnham is obviously focusing on Makerfield in this by-election. This is a constituency that's been living under a Labour government for the last 2 years. This is going to be a challenge, isn't it? There's a tension between the Makersfield voters' fury with Labour and their love for Andy Burnham. That's the tension, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to quantify their love for Andy Burnham. I would say that it's not absolutely copper-bottomed or universal, but they are, because there is a chance that he is unpopular in some areas, particularly over the rape gangs. It's why I mentioned Maggie Oliver, because he has been accused of actually kicking that subject into the long grass. Now, we'll just have to see how this pans out. But I think that there will be an enormous fight up there, because reform is likely to flood the area with 1,000 raincoats, as we used to say in Fleet Street, and the campaign will involve large numbers. So, as I say, it'll be very interesting to watch. And it could be a bloody fight.
Briefly, Linda, a lot of my viewers and listeners feel that it's an arrogant move by Andy Burnham and that voters are being taken for granted.
Yeah, I mean, that's been touched upon, just only very briefly, that voters don't like this kind of thing. They precisely don't like what they see as Andy Burnham's arrogance, but also as a kind of fit-up. You know, they want to be able to vote for the candidate that they think has arrived in front of them in the normal way. They don't want to be landed with a fait accompli, which is what the Labour candidate will be in this case.
Linda, brilliant stuff. You are the boss. Thank you for a great interview. Will a new leader save Labour?
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just coming up to 3 minutes past 8. Happy Friday, one and all. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. A big show for you this morning. And breaking as we come on air, will it be third time lucky for Andy Burnham as the King of the North seeks to become the political king of the country? Meanwhile, Starmer's allies turn on the Prime Minister, with Ed Miliband, once a Sir Keir loyalist, now plotting his boss's downfall. And with Starmerite MP Josh Simons vacating his seat for the Greater Manchester Mayor. But can Burnham win an election in the Northwest? And is he taking voters for granted? Is this an arrogant move? Standing in his way, of course, is Nigel Farage, who may be able to find a candidate in this constituency to keep Burnham out of the House of Commons. Meanwhile, a miracle has happened, folks. Angela Rayner has settled her dispute with HMRC, but would we receive the same kind treatment from the tax authorities if we hadn't paid our stamp duty? Something stinks. We've got the inside story. And as this political beauty contest turns ugly, Wes thinks that he's streetings ahead. So who wins the top prize? My question to you this morning is a simple one. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. Sam's pressing the buttons. Christian is the boss. The brilliant Tommy is taking your calls and directing our TV output, the one and only Luke. You can hear us on the radio, DAB+, in-app and online. Perhaps we're in the kitchen now. Perhaps in your ear as you slumber under the duvet. Maybe you're in the van on your way to work. Whatever you're up to, it's lovely to have your company on the radio. You can also watch the show. Head to YouTube, search Talking Up. We pop, you'll see my amazing guests, and you'll see Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m, in which I'll be dealing with Andy Burnham in no uncertain terms. Christian, it might get me cancelled. Good. So what do you think, folks? Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 0344 499 1000. We'll kick off with a voice note from Nick.
Morning, Mark. It's Nick from Horsham here. Mark, I messaged in Jeremy Kyle yesterday saying I would prefer Starmer to stay. And your comments this morning are backing that up. Because if Andy Burnham comes in and gains a lot of popularity, which for some reason he seems to have this aura around him, not that Manchester seems to like him, but the rest of the country seems to think he's God's gift to politics, I think it could be a disaster. We need reform majority, and the best way of that happening is Starmer staying in office for 3 years. I'll put up with this rubbish for another 3 years. I don't know about you, if it means, like I said yesterday, glory waits ahead. We cannot have Labour and the left becoming more popular because reform will not be getting a majority. Thanks, mate.
Top man, Nick, thank you for an excellent voice note. We are now in a crazy situation where I think our best bet is Keir Starmer staying at number 10 until the election. I honestly believe that. I really think it. Because what's going to happen is if Andy Burnham gets in, or Ed Miliband or Angela Rayner, they're going to unpick Shabana Mahmood's important changes to immigration and indefinite leave to remain. They will shift leftwards. Now, there may have been times in the past when it's been appropriate to have a left-wing administration, maybe after the war with the creation of the National Health Service. No problem. Tony Blair invested a lot of money in depleted public services and they decorated schools and all the rest of it. So that's fine. But now is not the moment, Christian Mitchell, for a socialist government. Have you seen the balance sheet? Got a bit of an exclusive for you. I met Liz Truss this week. What a formidable person she is. And by the way, what courage she's got. She's totally bounced back. And I've appeared on her show. It's going to air next week. I'll give you the details. But we were discussing it, and she said that, yeah, the country, the economy, she said, is on the brink. She said a crash is coming. If that happens, do you really want Big Ange in number 10? John has messaged the show. Mark, I was born and raised within walking distance of Makerfield near Wigan, where this by-election is going to happen. This is bedrock Lancashire working class country. I suspect they may well give Andy Burnham a bloody nose. Well, could this gamble pay off? I'm delighted to get the views now of the political editor of the Independent newspaper, one of the best connected journalists in the country, David Maddox. Good morning, David.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Very well. You must have had your holiday leave cancelled for what, the last year now?
it just feels like it just hasn't stopped, really.
There is never a good moment for a political journalist to go on holiday. And now we have the enormous gamble from Andy Burnham, this roll of the dice, his hopes of winning a constituency that has a majority of 5,399. This is definitely a gamble, isn't it?
This is a desperate roll of the dice. This is literally trying to kind of revive any hopes that Labour have altogether. I mean, I was listening to you listing out the various candidates there. The problem Labour have got is that they don't have an alternative to Keir Starmer currently in Parliament. Wes Streeting, actually quite a talented guy.
Yeah.
Can speak to the country, but desperately unpopular within the Labour Party. Angela Rayner, all sorts of problems. Okay, her tax issues have been resolved, but nobody really kind of trusts her to take the top job. Ed Miliband, past failure. I mean, imagine someone who was defeated at an election, then being imposed without an election as Prime Minister on the country. I mean, it'd be ludicrous. And Andy Burnham, I mean, is literally, I think, the only person who can unite the warring factions of the Labour Party. I can see why they are taking the risk. The problem we've got, and a lot of people are talking about this at the moment, but Keir Starmer's premiership is over. I mean, whether you want him to stay or not, it's done for. He has no power, no authority, can't do anything. So whilst we're waiting for weeks and weeks, months perhaps, for a by-election, we're effectively stuck with a zombie government whilst the Labour Party waits to make up its mind.
And it's wrong to count out Keir Starmer, who, notwithstanding his weaknesses as a politician, is a ruthless, driven, stubborn and ambitious man.
Yeah, absolutely. And he clearly isn't going to go down without a fight. But nevertheless, if Burnham gets in, I think it's a coronation for him. I think it's over. The problem the Prime Minister has, I mean, let's give an example. He had to appoint a new health secretary last night after Wes Streeting resigned, did the most predictable thing ever, and actually resigned. And, he would have wanted to have a much bigger reshuffle, but he has no authority to do that. He can't move people around. So, he in the end had to appoint a loyalist. Not many people have heard of a guy called James Murray. And that was, he was kind of limited in what he can do. So, as I say, we're going to be stuck with this zombie government now for weeks and weeks and weeks. And of course, as you're rightly pointing out, this seat, Macclesfield, is reforms to win. So, we could be waiting for weeks. I mean, Andy Burnham loses to whoever reform puts up. I mean, the whole thing is ludicrous, actually.
And David, it's a dilemma for Nigel Farage now as to the type of candidate he puts up in Makerfield. He could go for a respected local figure like Robert Kenyon, who achieved 31% of the vote in 2024, or he goes for a national figure like Zia Youssef. What do you think he might do?
If I were him, I would learn the lesson of the last by-election in that area, where he sent Matt Goodwin in, who was a kind of national figure, one of their kind of hopes for the future. And I think it backfired. I think they should have won that by-election, the Gorton and Denton by-election this is. And actually, had they gone for a local figure, by-elections are often won by local figures with strong local connections. But yeah, they've got somebody who did well there before in the previous election, has just won a council seat, I believe. I would go for him and, put the kind of campaign machine behind him. And I think he would stand a very good chance of winning.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it, to see how it plays out. Does it feel like the sharks are circling for Starmer? Josh Simons, who has just relinquished his seat, David, is somebody that helped Keir Starmer win power. Meanwhile, Starmer loyalist Ed Miliband stands accused of plotting against his boss now.
I'm never sure if Ed Miliband could have ever been counted as Starmer loyalist, really. I think he was a Starmer loyalist whilst it suited him. I mean, the Sharks aren't just circling, they're taking chunks out of him. And, Josh Simons, there's an interesting story about Josh Simons, though, which I think is coming out. he was director of Labour Together, which when he was in charge was involved in trying to smear journalists and other politicians. Now, a lot of those politicians have had their subject access requests back from Labour Together with some fairly fruity things in it, I'm told, which would have made Mr. Simons' position as an MP quite shaky potentially. So, there may be another reason for him to do, as I say, do the right thing for the country. But let's see.
Let's see. What about Angela Rayner? What do you make of this sudden decision by HMRC to accept her failure to pay her stamp duty? She has now paid that sum, but without any seeming consequences. What do you make of the absence of a fine and the timing of this verdict?
I mean, the absence of a fine certainly has raised eyebrows. I mean, there's quite a lot of surprise about that. But, clearly they accepted her explanation that it was an innocent mistake. I mean, if you forget to pay 30k or however much it is, it's the sort of thing all of us do, apparently. But, but anyway, I mean, the timing, well, we were told she'd known about it well before. And of course, her team didn't particularly want Wes Streeting to get any momentum yesterday. There was a thought that Wes Streeting was going to launch his own leadership bid. The timing of that really skewered Wes quite significantly. And I don't think it's any surprise that Streeting didn't decide to actually launch a leadership campaign yesterday.
Now, David, you are the man that unearthed the Mandelson scandal. Of course, it was your story last year that concerns had been raised about the candidacy of Peter Mandelson to be UK ambassador to the United States. It's been a disastrous scandal for the Prime Minister. He will try to cling on, won't he? This by-election, it's likely to happen in, we would say, the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Yes, I think so. And actually, on the Mandelson scandal, we're getting more papers next week, apparently, more revelations. So, things are about to get even worse for Keir Starmer, which, I mean, it's hard to believe, but he's, there's going to be more revelations about his judgment and questions about his integrity. As I say, 6 to 8 weeks. So that's, perhaps 2 months of a zombie government with nobody really quite sure what's going to happen. And then having to, Labour keeping its fingers crossed that Andy Burnham actually wins this seat.
Well, this is it. So, I mean, look, you're not a betting man, and it's a big mistake in politics to make predictions, isn't it, David? But would you say perhaps it's a 60-40 chance of victory for Andy Burnham, 70-30, or is it really 50-50?
I would at the moment put it as 50-50 simply because Reform are so favoured to win that. If you look at the projections, I think electoral calculus have it as an 82% chance for Reform to win. And, so Andy Burnham comes in as a kind of celebrity politician, very well known, very strong links to the Northwest. He can make up a lot of that gap. But at very best, it's a 50-50 chance. He's really taking a risk here.
David, brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Look forward to reading your coverage in The Independent. David Maddox, political editor of The Independent, one of the best connected journalists in the country. Christian, let's get David back on soon because he's got the inside track in Westminster. Here's a voice note from Dan.
Morning, Mark. Just to say, I think Zia Youssef would be a brilliant shout to fight the by-election against Andy Burnham. He's been fantastic in all the campaigns up to this point ran by Reform. Brilliant communicator, amazing on question time every time he goes on there. And I think after Nigel, he's the best asset that Reform have got. He'd beat Burnham. Get him in there.
Is Andy Burnham taking the voters for granted? Is this an arrogant move? Will he win? Should Reform put Zia Youssef into that race? And will a new leader save this government? You're listening to Talk Breakfast. It's 8:17.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tony in Bradford has messaged the show. Good morning, Mark. The British public are done with gambling on Labour. They are finished. This whole business with Burnham is a total waste of time. The people have spoken. We need a general election. Will in Norfolk has messaged the show. Good morning, Will. Hope you're well. Will says what Labour don't realise is that the country doesn't want Starmer out. They want Labour out. I'll get to more of your feedback very shortly, but I want to talk about Andy Burnham. Is he the king of the North, and is he a working class hero? Let's get the views of a very old friend of mine, author, broadcaster and academic, Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning, Mark. Lovely to see you.
It's really great to see you again. And you're based in Nottinghamshire, is that right?
I am, yes. I'm in one of the ex-mining communities.
And this was a former Labour heartland. What do the people that you live alongside think of people like Andy Burnham? Is Andy Burnham a working class hero?
No, I don't think he's a working class hero. You've got to remember, for almost a generation now, people don't know who he is. In Manchester, he might be very popular, but throughout the rest of the country, there's not really a sort of big knowledge of who he is. Unfortunately, where I live in Nottinghamshire, Labour, I honestly think, has lost that working class vote for the long term.
Wow.
I'm not sure that even Andy Burnham, the king of the North, he's popular in Manchester. He does kind of speak in a very common sense way if you listen to him. But I just think that now it's a step too far for Labour. The people where I live and all over, not just actually Nottinghamshire, all over that red wall and deindustrialised communities, they have voted for Labour for almost 100 years. And what Labour has done with those communities is they've almost like used their votes in order to put usually their mates into Westminster. If you think about Hartlepool, Mandelson actually was flown into Hartlepool. Could you imagine Peter Mandelson? How could he ever have represented Hartlepool? So, the people, the working class, the deindustrialised working class, have a long relationship with the Labour Party, and I think that is broken.
And why do you feel that Labour have abandoned the working class? What's happened to the party and that political movement that they're now done with Labour?
I think it started a lot. It started in '97 with Tony Blair, who made a conscious effort to he wanted to attract that sort of lower middle class. I don't know if you remember Mondeo Man.
Oh, yes.
And the Essex voter. That sort of almost like working class Tory. He went for those. And since 1997, that's been the direction of the Labour Party. And if you look at the working class deindustrialised areas, year after year after year, they have voted less and less for Labour. So this is not something that's just happened in the last 5 years. This has actually been happening over 30. There was places like where I'm from, Ashfield, where they used to weigh the vote for Labour. And obviously now Ashfield is a constituency of Lee Anderson, a local man, a working class man, but he's reform.
And his journey reflects that of many in working class parts of the country.
Yeah, yeah. Nottinghamshire has always been considered as a bellwether, actually, because for the last 15 years they've voted with the pattern of the country. So I think if you look at Nottinghamshire now, which is, I would say now, a reform heartland, we might get the order of traffic. And as you said, Lee Anderson is an example of a journey, through working class Britain, actually.
Well, Rachel has messaged the show, Lisa, saying, "Good morning, Mark." She's in Newcastle. "If I was a Makerfield constituent, I wouldn't vote for Andy Burnham because his focus wouldn't be representing the area. It would be becoming PM and jet-setting around the world. You may as well not have an MP." And Bill in Cheshire says Reform's candidate for Makerfield should be the guy who stood last time, a good local candidate. Then it will be Burnham that is the unwanted guy who's been parachuted in for his own reasons. It shows no respect for voters. The messaging of Andy Burnham swooping into a constituency and re-entering the House of Commons is not great, is it? The optics aren't great, Lisa.
No, it's not. And it's actually a very tried and tested theme by Labour. They've been doing this to these communities for a long time. Like I said, there has been so many working class, particularly deindustrialised white working class communities that the Labour Party have used over the years to bring in ministers, friends, photocopying boy. They have done this for 100 years. This is a very tried and tested Labour ploy. But these communities are aware of it now. They know. And what people want now is they want local representation. They want to be represented in Parliament, and they want someone to represent them who knows them and understands their community. And even though Andy Burnham will tick some of those boxes, he won't tick all of those boxes. And I think there's another really important point as well with Burnham. He is very pro-Europe. And as we know, the voters in the Red Wall are not. And if this is a ploy for Andy Burnham to sort of win back those Red Wall voters, he really needs to have a look at what he's going to do about Europe.
Well, Europe's an interesting one. Lisa, before I let you go, two quick questions. Angela Rayner, she is a potential candidate for the top job. What's your appraisal of her? Because she certainly flexes her working class credentials.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for a long time I've had no love for Angela Rayner. I have seen her as a class traitor. I think in where we are now, I don't think she's going to be standing. I think there is a pact between Streeting, Rayner and Burnham. And it's a pact that they, almost sort of a soft left pact. The three of them are looking to take over the Labour government.
I can't disagree with you on that. Why do you push back on the idea that Angela Rayner is also a working class hero? She was a single mum. She left school without many qualifications. Is that not the definition of a working class hero?
Well, she's working class. She's definitely working class. Her story is very similar to mine. Although what Angela Rayner has done is, you've got to look at her policies and what she believes in. And it's not really for working class people. Her own constituents complain about her all the time. She's done the same, she's done that Labour pattern. She's got in, she's become very wealthy now. And now she's moved, she's done the ultimate sin. She's left the north to live in Brighton. Imagine that. How does she think that her own constituents is in the north? And then the north are desperate for representation. The deindustrialised communities are desperate for representation. And Angela Rayner has done the very Labour thing of using her constituents and for her own personal career. That's not really a working class hero.
And Lisa, last but not least, does it surprise you that a former banker and a multimillionaire like Nigel Farage should be the great hope for many working class voters? Is that surprising? What do you make of it?
It's not surprising because, again, people are listening to policy. People want policy. I think this feels politics is finished now. What people want is they want policy. And I think this is the other area where they're going to come unstuck as well. Their policy around immigration. Just 2 weeks ago, Angela Rayner was reported to say she would only go back in cabinet if Mahmood was sacked because she doesn't agree with her on immigration. So people are listening to policy. And, you know, if anybody from the Labour government is listening now, I would say to them, look at your policies because the British public definitely are.
Yes, indeed. The public don't care about your bank balance. They want to know what you're going to do when you're in power. Lisa, it's been too long. What a thrill to have you on the show. Look forward to catching up very soon. More power to you and to Wayne, your lovely friend who I remember meeting back in the day. Dr. Lisa Mackenzie, author and broadcaster. Doesn't Lisa talk sense? Another great booking. We must get her back, Christian. Speaking of people we must get back, Richard Tice is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Talk Breakfast, 8:32. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? I'll get to your voice notes and texts in a moment, but joining us live on Talk Breakfast is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning to you, and it'll make no difference is our view. We're looking forward to this by-election whenever it comes. The timing of it will be quite interesting to watch, Mark, but the critical thing that your listeners and viewers will want to know is we will have a fantastic candidate, and that person will have the full support of Reform. We will be throwing everything to ensure that we make Burnham history. That is the opportunity as he resigns from being Mayor of Greater Manchester before he can go through this parliamentary by-election. So yeah, we want to defeat him, we want to make Burnham history, and then go on to win the mayoral race for Greater Manchester. And essentially, we are now the new King of the North, Mark. That's the reality from the local elections, that we completely smashed it last week when we won councils all over the north of England and indeed around the West Midlands and the like.
Now, clearly a decision as to which candidate to offer to the electorate in Makerfield will come in the days ahead, Richard. You won't have a name yet, but you'll have a short list. Would you prefer a respected local figure like Robert Kenyon, who achieved a very handsome 31% of the vote in July 2024? Would you go for a national figure like Zia Youssef, your colleague, or a respected public figure like Maggie Oliver, who campaigned so effectively against the grooming gangs?
Well, all that will be worked out by the team who are looking at applications as we speak, Mark, and I'm very confident that the selection panel will make a great choice.
What would you go for? You're a man of keen political judgment. Would you go for a national figure like Zia?
It's a job for the selection team. Lots of people will be inputting thoughts, but let them do their work. But whoever it is, they will be fantastic. We're going to throw everything at this, and we are truly determined to win it. It will be it'll be a massively important by-election, possibly one of the most important in recent decades, Mark. And so that's why we're very, very keen to win it. It'll be close. Burnham has his fans in the area, in the region. We know that, but it'll be frankly, everybody else should just stand aside and let it become a true two-horse race. The Tories will probably lose their deposit. They might as well not bother. Their history in the north, long gone.
Would the party at least consider a figure like Maggie Oliver as a candidate? Is that a possibility, Richard?
There are all sorts of possibilities. I'm not going to get drawn, Mark. That's not my job. That's the selection panel's job. Just give them a bit of space. We're only about 18 hours into this.
Would you like people like Maggie Oliver to be in the House of Commons on the Reform banner?
There are lots of brilliant people who will come to the House of Commons as Reform MPs. Just give us a few more hours and maybe a couple of days, Mark, to get it right. You would obviously fully understand the importance of getting it right. And as I say, we don't know. It may be many months before the by-election is actually formally triggered. And this is a serious point. The chief whip is supposed to move the writ.
Yeah.
He could decide to wait 3 or 4 months, in which case that would be too long. And then opposition parties would be advocating to the Speaker to move the writ himself. So all of this is to play out. If Starmer wants to play parliamentary games so that he can cling on a few more nights in number 10 when the country wants him out and long gone, well, that's what we've got to deal with.
And if Andy Burnham were to win this seat, which, as you've rightly said, Richard, will be a closely fought contest, if he wins, that's a disaster for Reform UK, isn't it? Because Andy Burnham is much better at politics than Keir Starmer. If he gets into number 10, Reform have a problem.
Well, you say he's good at politics, but, I mean, this is a guy who basically was pretty vacuous as a minister in the early 2000s, and he tried not once but twice and failed badly to be the elected leader of the Labour Party in 2010 and 15. So maybe he's not that good at national politics. But yes, he is respected in and around Manchester. He will be a serious opposition candidate.
He's Reform's worst nightmare.
We don't have any nightmares. We all sleep very well in the confidence that our policies are the right one to save this country.
What happens if Andy Burnham gets into number 10 is he wins back the Red Wall and you, Richard Tice, and your colleagues are stuck in opposition?
I think you're having a nightmare, Mark, because it's just not going to happen.
I've had my 3 Weetabix today. I've already dealt with Isabel Oakeshott. You're next.
I think 3 Weetabix is a bit greedy. I think you're suffering from inflation, Mark. But look, the reality is he's not a nightmare for Reform. He's a nightmare for the country because he's a hard socialist that doesn't understand the huge power of the bond markets, who are already applying a moron premium to the risk of Burnham. And he just if you actually look at his track record since he was mayor of Greater Manchester, he spent tens and tens of millions of local taxpayers' cash on a sort of Manchester ULEZ scheme. He put all the cameras up, then realised it was a bit unpopular.
Ridiculous.
And scrapped it. No conviction, no principle, just vacuous.
Well, yes, I mean, I believe that he's a political grifter. He posed as a Blairite back in the day. Now he's apparently a lefty. It's very confusing. Richard, you've always been very ideologically consistent over many, many years. It's interesting, though, isn't it? There are some strange alliances emerging, and it's very clear that both Reform UK and Keir Starmer would like Reform to win this by-election. Do you think Starmer could campaign for reform in Makerfield?
You're getting that extra Weetabix has made you increasingly mischievous this morning.
But it's true though. Starmer's on your side.
Frankly, Starmer is on his own side. We at Reform, yes, we want to absolutely beat Andy Burnham, but we'll beat him by our own great policies, our own great campaigning, and that's what we're about.
Most definitely, although I'm sure privately, if Reform do win that by-election, Sir Keir will pour himself a large scotch by way of celebration. Richard, will our relationship with the EU be a campaigning issue in this constituency? Let's not forget that Andy Burnham was a strong Remainer. Makerfield is a Leave area.
Well, if he talks too much about getting closer to the EU, well, that'll increase the prospects of him being history in electoral terms, because it's a massive Leave area, as is the vast majority of the North. And that's one of the reasons, of course, why we did so well just last week. We won every ward in the council elections in this constituency by a country mile. So voters have already said in Makerfield, we want reform, we want more reform, and we are determined to make sure that not too many of them say we want the vacuous Burnham.
Andy Burnham is a popular and respected figure in the North West. So what do you need to do as a party to defeat him?
Just bang the drum, the fact that the EU is a failing economic model. The last thing we need to do is to listen to people like Andy Burnham, who want to drag us back into the orbit of the failing economic model from the bungling bureaucrats at Brussels. We want more sovereign independence, more wonderful energy treasure from the North Sea, our own oil and gas. These people like Burnham and the mad red Ed Miliband, they want to scrap the ability to even explore more oil wells and gas fields in the North Sea. I mean, it's just negligence and irresponsible. All of this stuff, a Reform government, we will have to repeal it all and rapidly to get our economy back on track and to bring the bills down. And that's what everybody wants.
And
all of these policies by Miliband, by Burnham, by Starmer, they are driving up our bills, driving up the cost of living. If you scrap net stupid zero, you can get rid of the daft taxes and the levies and the greeny things, and we can get back to reindustrialising Britain.
Richard, you're an entrepreneur as well as a politician. You know a balance sheet when you see one. The country is dangerously in the red. Do you have a concern that if Sir Keir Starmer is replaced, we will have some kind of economic crisis?
I regret to say that we're heading that way, whatever happens under this government of socialists that are very good at basically spending other people's money until they run out. And I suppose the only sort of silver lining to this nightmare that they are imposing on the nation is that it may advance the general election to an earlier date. And that gives the great British people the opportunity to kick out socialism and bring in reform.
If Reform were to win the next general election, do you think that in the run-up to that election, yourself, Zia Youssef, Suella Braverman, Lee Anderson, Nigel Farage need to manage expectations about what's possible, given how broken the country will be?
It's a really good point. Obviously, we are optimistic, we are hopeful. We know that with our skill sets and our conviction, we can do lots very quickly. But Rome's not built in a day, and we have to identify what we can do immediately, such as leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, such as repealing the Human Rights Act, and much more besides. But there are other things that will take longer. For example, improving the leadership of the police, improving the judiciary and these things. You know, some of these things will just take a bit longer. And we have to be honest with people about the pace at which we can achieve certain things. Because, look, we're all impatient. We all want things to happen faster, not slower. And you and I are sort of testament to that, Mark. But yeah, we just got to do it as fast as we can. Sleeves rolled up, get stuck in.
Are you concerned about this story surrounding your leader, Nigel Farage, your colleague and friend, in regards to a £5 million donation that was received before he was, it was before the election. I think it was before he was leader of Reform UK, wasn't it? So by the letter of the law, he didn't need to declare it. Are you concerned, though, that this story won't go away and it's being weaponised by your rivals?
It was being weaponised by the mainstream media, who are panicking because they've tried to throw everything at Nigel, smears, libel, the lot. They've tried to throw a whole load of stuff at myself and Robert Jenrick. And yet the voters have looked at all this stuff and said, do you know what, actually, we want more Nigel. We want more reform. We want more successful business people to come in and save the country. So, no, I'm not concerned.
But you're so different to Nigel, Richard, because you've earned your money by being an incredibly talented entrepreneur, very hard-working businessman. You've earned your cash. Nigel just gets given it. That's how you're so different to Nigel.
Nigel has earned his money, and do you know what?
You earn it. You're the guy that puts the hours in.
Yeah,
Nigel just gets it on a plate.
The tragedy is that after 2 decades plus of campaigning for Brexit, Nigel's reward was that he's the most at-risk politician who needs the most safety and security that disgracefully the state wouldn't pay for.
Shocking.
And therefore, I mean, thank heavens for the generosity of one successful individual. But it's a tragedy, really, that it had to get to that. But look, we're confident that all of the rules have been complied with, and on we go.
Richard, you're worth a few bob, and congratulations on that. I encourage wealth creation in this country because it's the wealthy that pay the lion's share of tax in this country. If I was Prime Minister, we can only dream, I would make the UK a haven for wealth creators. I'm sure that as Reform UK in government, you'd like to do the same. That's great news. But you know as well as I do that these billionaires are not stupid. And they don't just throw money around willy-nilly. That's why they're billionaires. So what does this chap, this donor, want for his $5 million?
What he wants, actually, is for Britain to be great again. What he wants is this incredible country that he and all of us and all of your listeners and viewers love, to get it back on its feet, to be growing at between 2.5% and 4% a year like we were in the 80s and 90s, to be safe to walk our streets, to feel proud as we talk about the UK on the international stage that Starmer has humiliated us on. All of those things and much, much more. And, you know, these billionaires, they want Britain back on track and great again. And thank heavens that they're willing to get stuck in and help.
Richard, great to have you on the show. I know that you need to run now. What is your message to the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, as he contests this seat in Makerfield? What is your message to Andy Burnham, and we'll send it to his office?
We look forward to a great campaign and to defeating you on the night.
There you go.
Love Ticey.
Ticey, great to see you. Thank you for your time. We'll catch up soon. My thanks to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Your reaction to that conversation, 0344 499 1000. Will a new leader save Labour? This is Talk Breakfast.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Let's get the thoughts of Richard Power Saeed, former Labour Party official and author of 1997, The Future That Never Happened, A History of New Labour. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Mark. Good to see you.
Really good to see you again. What do you make of this psychodrama playing out within a party that you love?
I mean, it is actually just how the British parliamentary system operates on a pretty frequent basis. As a historian, I'm afraid this stuff doesn't really surprise me. It's how the British parliamentary system has worked for actually hundreds of years. But it's not particularly edifying, I'll give you that.
Do we need to be honest and say that Keir Starmer was perhaps not the right choice of leader for this Labour project? Has he been found out in office, Richard? What do you think?
You know, I think on the one hand, Keir Starmer's actually achieved lots of really important things in terms of restarting investment into our economy and our industry, which takes a really long time to feed through. And it's why lots of Tory governments haven't done it, because it didn't have an immediate electoral benefit for them. And, you know, I really approve of the way that he and his government, and especially Angela Rayner, have increased workers' rights from day one at work so that we're all defended against bad bosses. These are really important things that we absolutely needed to do for our country. But let's be honest about it. He's not acted boldly enough. He's not acted fast enough. And he's really not shown people that he's doing these things. So, yeah, I don't think he was the right person for the job. But I also think that we shouldn't exaggerate how badly he's done.
Is acting boldly Labour code for being more left-wing, more progressive?
If by that you mean really helping people with the cost of living, if you mean by that not taking secret £5 million bungs from your billionaire mates and then defending their interests in your policy platform, then yes, I'd agree with that.
Well, I mean, just looking at some of those policies you've outlined, many of them laudable in their aims: workers' rights, renters' rights, minimum wage. The problem is that all of those policies appear to be backfiring, don't they? So, for example, increasing the minimum wage has led to the highest youth unemployment in Europe, something that we've never had in this country before. Similarly, public sector payouts are causing inflation, and the improvements to workers' rights is reawakening the old enemy of unemployment and causing businesses to close down. Not ideal.
I think you always see these kinds of arguments being trotted out by the bosses who, you know, don't want to treat their workers fairly. But when you compare the UK to similar economies where you've got far stronger workers' rights, where you've got strong trade unions who are able to protect their workers' interests properly and aren't held back by regulation, then actually you see that those economies have been doing much better than the UK for quite a long time. And there's a really simple reason for that, right? Economies where workers are properly protected tend to be the ones where there's proper investment long-term in industry and manufacturing. And I'm really proud of the fact that Labour has been working much harder and much more long-term to get that kind of investment into our industries and our manufacturing. Like I say, it's not a thing which immediately creates jobs tomorrow. It's a very long-term way of improving our society. That's why the Tories never did it. It's why Reform won't do it, because they're not interested in helping working people over the long term. They're interested in getting into power. But Labour's been doing that. They're going to carry on doing it under any leadership, I'm sure. I think the more progressive potential candidates in a leadership contest are the ones who would invest more in our country and therefore would be better for growth and for fairness over the long term.
But improving workers' rights and increasing the minimum wage, very laudable, but both of those things cause more unemployment, don't they? So what's the point?
No, that's a neoliberal talking point, and it just hasn't been shown to be true over the long term.
Unemployment is up on the watch of Rachel Reeves, and we have the highest youth unemployment in Europe, which we've never had before, all since Labour won power. If it's not cheap to hire young people, then unemployment will go up.
Mark, you're describing like one economy over 2 years. I'm talking to you about what the data shows over many economies over many years. The UK economy is, as we all know, in the context of a terrible global economic context and a terrible geopolitical context. Also, on top of that, like, this country does face enormous headwinds in terms of an aging population. And on top of that, we've had government after government that's refused to invest in our economy. They've said, let's leave it to the free market. We've seen how well that worked. It's why I think Richard Tice is such a charlatan. He's just coming on the show talking about how we should let the state, force the state to hold back and just let the free market do what it wants to do. You just can't trust these people. That model hasn't worked for decades. It's why we've seen our industries destroyed. It's why we've seen our manufacturing destroyed. This guy just wants that to continue because he knows it's in the interests of his private equity donors. Yeah, the Reform Party has consistently defended the interests of the billionaires. That's why Nigel Farage takes secret donations from these people and doesn't tell us about it. The idea that we should want the Labour Party to mimic that, it's just ridiculous. I'm so proud that we've got a government that isn't going to go along with that kind of nonsense.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with you. I think what we want is a very business-friendly environment, like in the 1980s. Economic growth in 87 was 5.4%. Just think of all that national income. Just think of the amount you could invest in public services if we had that kind of growth. How do you do it? Reduce taxes and make it easier for businesses to operate.
I mean, Mark, it's like you're reading a sort of like low quality economics op-ed from the Daily Telegraph from the 1990s. This is nonsense. It's not actually how the economy works. We had high growth in the 80s because of North Sea oil was really plentiful back then. It's not anymore because of the geology of the damn thing. And we had high growth because China had not joined the WTO and wasn't sucking up all of the investment in the global economy. Think we're in a completely different context now, and the way that you achieve growth, we have seen by looking at comparable economies, is by ensuring that the state is investing using the power of government.
Could you give me an example?
Create jobs and create innovation.
Fair enough, but which economies would they be? Give me a model economy.
I'm comparing us to other Northern European economies, which are much more successful than us.
Germany, who have been in recession for 2 years?
Germany's been in recession for 2 years because of the Ukraine crisis. And like, you know what? I would much prefer to have had the German economy over the last few decades.
What about France, who have a national debt which is 120% of GDP? Are they the model?
People are much happier in France than they are in the UK.
Richard, it's always lovely to have you on the show. We must do it again soon. It's been far too long. Thank you for your time. Really enjoyed our conversation. Richard Power Said is a former Labour Party official, author of 1997, The Future That Never Happened, A History of New Labour. I love these debates, and that's what this show is all about. And let's get folk on that don't agree with each other, and let's have the competition of ideas. Is that a crazy thought? Am I losing the plot? Well, there will be a lot of competition for ideas in the next hour, because in just 2 minutes' time, it's Dolan's Dispatch. And it's about the runners and the riders for the Labour leadership. And I'll be dealing with Andy Burnham in no uncertain terms. That's Dolan's Dispatch in 2 minutes' time. Plus, one of the finest journalists in the land from The Telegraph, Annabel Denham. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? This is Talk Breakfast.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Two minutes past 9, top of the morning. Talk Breakfast, Mark Dolan. A big hour to come. And breaking this morning, will it be third time lucky for Andy Burnham as the King of the North seeks to become the political king of the country? Meanwhile, Starmer's allies turn on the Prime Minister, with Ed Miliband, once a Sir Keir loyalist, now plotting his boss's downfall. And with Starmerite MP Josh Simons vacating his seat for the Greater Manchester Mayor. But can Andy Burnham win an election in the North West? Is he taking voters for granted? Is this an arrogant move? Could it backfire? Well, standing in Burnham's way is Nigel Farage, who may be able to do Starmer a favour by winning that seat for reform and keeping Burnham out of the House of Commons. Meanwhile, a miracle has happened. Angela Rayner has settled her dispute with HMRC, But would we receive the same kind of treatment from the tax authorities that Angela Rayner has had if we hadn't paid our stamp duty? Where's the slap on the wrist? Where's the fine? And as this political beauty contest turns ugly, Wes thinks that he's streetings ahead. So who wins the top prize? Does Starmer cling on to power? My question to you this morning is a simple one. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note and let's talk. Dolan's Dispatch on the way in a couple of seconds. If you want to see Dolan's Dispatch, head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop, hit the live button, because it's radio and it's telly. This is Talk. Dolan's Dispatch coming, but first, let's kick off the hour with a brilliant voice note from Steve.
Morning, Mark. It's Steve from Yorkshire. Love your show, by the way. So, this Andy Burnham scenario, I think Reform need to go with a local candidate because, well, look what happened with Matt Goodwin, like your previous guest said. That didn't work out. And locals, I'm a northerner, and I think Manchester, they wouldn't like it if you start parachuting people in.
What a brilliant voice note, and thank you for that, Steve. You speak for many with your sentiment there. Thank you for your kind words about the show. Time now for Dolan's Dispatch. Aren't we lucky? What a wonderful embarrassment of riches lie before us by way of leadership for the country. Stick with Starmer. That's one option. Keep faith with the most unpopular premier in the history of political polling. Well, frankly, when you look at the alternatives for the top job, it feels like we're in a sinking ship with the unappealing prospect of leaping overboard into a sea of sharks. For example, get rid of Starmer and bring in Ed Miliband, a previously failed Labour leader who stabbed his own brother in the back to get the top job previously. A man who will double down on the ruinous and failed experiment of net zero should he win power. No doubt his first action would be to put a windmill on 10 Downing Street. Let's hope it whisks him away. Then you've got the ginger growler herself, Angela Rayner, who mysteriously and miraculously has resolved her stamp duty issue with HMRC saying nothing to see here. That's convenient, isn't it? That doesn't stink at all. If Big Ange gets in, she'll be backed by the unions and the left of the party, and they will expect their pound of flesh. I expect there will be an economic crisis so severe if she wins that it will make Liz Truss's mini budget look like a minor blip. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I bite your hand off for Liz Truss back in number 10 compared to this shower. Then there's Andy Burnham, who in my view is a preening narcissist. If he was made of chocolate, he'd eat himself. Years ago, he was a moderate figure, apparently, fully signed up to the New Labour project. Now, apparently, he's a big lefty. None of this, of course, is conviction or principle. It is naked ambition from a political emperor decidedly lacking in clothes. Then there's Wes Streeting, who's wanted to be Prime Minister from the moment he was in utero. He's the least bad option, of course, but his more sensible policies won't wash with the left of the party, who would make a Streeting administration an absolute misery, and of course they would thwart his agenda. So this is not so much a beauty contest as an ugly ego fest, a parade of intellectually average, ideologically captured, politically compromised grifters. None of them is the best option for Britain. We don't want a new Prime Minister. We want a new government. 0344 499 1000, your reaction. I'm delighted to welcome Annabel Denham, senior political commentator at The Telegraph. Hello, Annabel.
Good morning.
Andy Burnham is taking the biggest of political gambles, is he not, to contest a seat with a 5,500 majority?
He is, but I'm not sure that he really had much choice. And actually, if you looked at the statements that came out yesterday, first from Josh Simons, who is relinquishing his seat, sacrificing himself in order that Andy Burnham can stand, and then subsequently the comments we had from Burnham himself, it didn't necessarily sound like the two men had coordinated this, or at least coordinated it particularly well. The impression I got was that Burnham was slightly caught off guard by this move from Josh Simons. To your point that it's a huge gamble for him, yes, it is. But as one Labour MP privately quipped yesterday, he'd already tried about 26 other seats where the standing MP refused where the sitting MP refused to stand aside. So he doesn't really have much choice. And he needs a seat in that part of the country, because then he can lean into the fact that he's Greater Manchester Mayor, who many people seem to believe has performed miracles in that region, in that role. Bearing in mind that this is pretty awkward for Andy Burnham. He's supposed to be in his current position for the next 2 years. What are the people who voted for him to be their mayor? So it's going to be a really interesting contest. Nigel Farage has come out and said they're going to throw everything at it. Of course they are, because we should bear in mind this is a pretty high stakes contest for reform as well. They need to be able to show that they have thoroughly and convincingly smashed the red wall. And whilst Gorton and Denton, that by-election a few months ago, didn't go their way, and perhaps the expectation all along was that the Greens or indeed Labour would win, if you actually looked at the demography of that constituency, Makerfield is quite a different beast. And this by-election is coming after the local elections, which saw Reform win in all 8 wards. So everything looks like it should be going in their favour, and it will be damaging to Reform, I think, and damaging to their momentum if they are not able to win.
Do you buy this King of the North shtick? Is Andy Burnham really the second coming?
No, I don't. As you've said, Mark, this is going to be his 3rd attempt at becoming Labour leader. There's no guarantee that he's going to be able to win this seat, because one reason being that voters don't like carpetbaggers. And one of the issues is, if you look at his performance in Manchester, yes, there has been impressive growth in productivity. The area has surpassed many others in the country since he became Manchester mayor, economically speaking, but those gains have not been dispersed across Greater Manchester. What you have are pockets of prosperity and other areas that feel as though they've been completely left behind. And indeed, that was the message I got when I went up to Gorton and Denton during that by-election. These were people living in parts of Greater Manchester who just felt that they'd been totally neglected, and they were reading about, this economic boom that was happening just around the corner, but they weren't feeling the effects of it. And I just wonder if that's going to be a point of vulnerability that Reform will keep trying to press Andy Burnham on and hammer home to constituents in Makerfield.
There are 2 men, it's my view, Annabelle, that would like to see Andy Burnham defeated in this by-election. One is Nigel Paul Farage. The other is Keir Rodney Starmer.
Yes, well, again, as one Conservative MP was joking yesterday, the best thing that Starmer could do for his personal survival, his professional survival, is go up and campaign and Makerfield as much as he possibly can, because that's how deeply unpopular the Prime Minister is. And there was no way that he could have blocked Andy Burnham from standing in this seat, having done so in Gorton and Denton. And for Labour to have then lost that seat, lost that constituency, was, we forget about it now, but that was really damaging to Starmer. He lacks the authority to try and block this move now anyway. Actually, a sort of interesting figure in all of this is Shabana Mahmood, because she and Josh Simons are allies. She obviously has a key role in the NEC, which blocked Burnham standing in Gorton and Denton earlier this year. And it's difficult to imagine that Josh Simons made that decision without her tacit endorsement. So you wonder whether, behind the scenes, and there'll be all sorts of plots and, discussions and whisperings and gossiping going on among Labour MPs, but you do wonder whether perhaps Shabana Mahmood is positioning herself so that if Andy Burnham is successful, then she could perhaps become, let's say, his Chancellor of the Exchequer. But we are a long, long way from that. We still need to bear in mind that this is going to be a difficult fight for Andy Burnham, and if he isn't successful, what does that mean for the Labour leadership contest? It's extraordinary that we know so little. There are so many permutations, so many different possibilities, as evidenced, I think, and illustrated by the fact that yesterday we began by writing about Angela Rayner. The news broke at 6 o'clock yesterday morning that she'd been cleared by HMRC. Then Res Streeting resigned. But by the end of the day, we were all talking about Andy Burnham and him having a possible route back into Parliament and thus number 10.
It seems that in the absence of Andy Burnham in the House of Commons, the other candidates are all tainted. You've got Ed Miliband, who's been there before, lost a general election as Labour leader. You've got Angela Rayner, who is despised by a good portion of those Labour backbenchers, notwithstanding the popularity she has within the party membership. Then you've got Wes Streeting, who's probably too right for the party that he would seek to lead. So if Burnham doesn't win this by-election, it's all to play for Starmer, isn't it?
I think it is. I think it's plausible that there will only be two names on the ballot, Wes Streeting and Keir Starmer. If that's the case, obviously Starmer will fight it tooth and nail. The question is whether Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner are going to allow a contest to go ahead without there being a candidate from the soft left. But as you say, both figures very tainted. Angela Rayner, the housing secretary who allowed herself to be embroiled in a housing scandal, who, yes, is popular with the unions, and that could be quite a useful bargaining chip for her if you look at what has happened to union funding of the Labour Party over the last half decade or so. Ed Miliband, this is a man who led Labour to a disastrous defeat in 2015. We forget that that was a winnable election for the Labour Party, and the idea that he would manage to stumble into number 10 through the side door, having been rejected by the population a little over a decade ago, feels borderline anti-democratic. So I think he's problematic because were he to be successful in a leadership contest, many people would demand a general election as a consequence, and that is the last thing that Labour are going to want, especially after those catastrophic election results last week.
Annabelle, do you think, notwithstanding that remark that you've made, that there's a chance if Burnham wins, he goes straight to the country off the back of a Burnham bounce?
I suspect it's extremely unlikely. Prime ministers do not call general elections any sooner than is absolutely necessary. And Labour will be, looking to their left, looking to their right, and hoping that the Greens implode, that Jack Palahniuk becomes mired in so many controversies. I mean, we've seen evidence of that just over the last fortnight or so.
Captain Cleavage.
Exactly.
I mean, you know he's lying when he opens his mouth. This guy reckons that he worked for the Department of Justice. He also said that he was an important figure at the Red Cross. This is a guy that obviously we know the Cleavage story. Didn't pay his council tax on the houseboat. I mean, his whole project is sinking, isn't it?
Well, it does feel that way. Certainly his net approval rating has plunged. Now, the Greens did have a decent performance at the local elections last week, so they haven't totally lost their shine. But, I do think people are looking at Jack Palahniuk and wondering how trustworthy he is. As you say, you had the Red Cross, you had the Ministry of Justice, you had the fact that he had reportedly given assurances to hypnotherapy patients that he had the required or certain type of accreditation when he didn't. There's the houseboat council tax story, and there's the fact that you had that very public row with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Mark Rowley, after reposting a tweet following those terrible Golders Green stabbings.
Yeah.
He seems to me to be a liability to the Green Party, and if I were in that party, I'd be getting increasingly nervous. There's a chance that Labour will be clinging on in the hope that there is some sort of force majeure that means that their opponents are taken out of the race in some way. And indeed,
anybody is probably going to do a better job at leading the Labour Party than Keir Starmer. What we learned last week is that the Prime Minister is deeply unpopular, intensely and almost uniquely disliked. That was what kept coming up on the doorstep, with people simply do not like Keir Starmer. And so Labour politicians will be thinking, well, anybody is going to do a better job. Under any other leader, we're going to see some sort of bounce in the polls. But nevertheless, they're not going to want to go to the electorate any sooner than they absolutely need to.
But Annabelle, the reason why your journalism in the Telegraph is unmissable is because you don't get caught up in the Westminster bubble. Most of your copy focuses on what's happening to your readers at the Telegraph, what's happening to the country. And we have to look at the current leadership that we have. It may be a case, Annabelle, of be careful what you wish for, because any likely replacement for Starmer will be more left-wing. What are the implications for my viewers and listeners and your readers if that happens?
Well, I mean, it's going to be very bad news, undoubtedly so, because Wes Streeting's path to number 10, let's not forget, is extremely narrow, and he is the only candidate in this race who understands fiscal reality. He is the only one who doesn't seem to believe that the markets will just fall in line if Andy Burnham instructs them to. Well, if you want the market, don't want to be dominated by the markets, don't borrow £3 trillion from them. You know, he is the only one who grasps that our welfare bill, which is set to reach £400 billion by the end of this decade, is simply unsustainable. He's uncomfortable with the current tax burden. Look, you know, he's not perfect. He wants closer relations with the EU. He seems to believe that Brexit is the really main sort of bogeyman of the British economy. But nevertheless, he would be the safest pair of hands on the tiller. Whereas Angela Rayner, well, the Employment Rights Act, the Jobs Destroying Act, was her baby. She was the one who came up with the whole concept, a New Deal for working people, and she shepherded it through the Commons. She wants to further strengthen union power. She wants to impose more burdens on employers. Andy Burnham, well, we know that he feels that we're in hock to the market, so he will presumably want to borrow more and do nothing on the spending side of the ledger. So any sane Ned Miliband's a net zero fanatic. We've seen what that's done to our energy bills. It's why we've got the highest industrial and household energy bills among most countries in the developed world. And we cannot prosper without cheap and abundant energy. So no, I think any sort of sensible person, any sensible Labour MP really should be hoping that Wes Streeting comes out on top. But the fundamental problem is, or a fundamental problem is, ever since Neil Kinnock changed the leadership rules in the 1980s, it's been the members who decide, and they tend to be, the ideologues, the zealots, those who are often detached from fiscal economic reality, and they're going to have the final say.
Most definitely. Annabelle, brilliant to have you on the show. We'll speak soon. Annabelle Denham is the senior political commentator at The Telegraph. Here's a voice note from Hannah on the subject of Andy Burnham.
Morning, Mark. A wonderful show. I'm just so confused about Andy Burnham. Why we're treating him like he's some kind of messiah. I moved to Manchester in the early 2000s and don't live far away. And the decline since he became mayor is there for all to see. Piccadilly Gardens is a no-go area. You would no longer feel safe on an evening out. I wouldn't walk from a car park to a restaurant. So yeah, Andy Burnham, I just don't get it.
Well, there you go. Does he walk on water? Is he the second coming? Jesus Christ! What do you all think? 03444991000. Hannah, thank you for that brilliant voice note. We love the voice notes, don't we, Christian? They are, because you're busy. This is a breakfast show. You've got so much going on. So thank you for that. Lots more to come. Will a new leader save this country? Will it save the Labour Party? We're going straight to number 10 next.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:26 Talk Breakfast. Maggie says, good morning, Mark. They could bring back Jesus Christ. It won't make a bit of difference. The country has seen how Labour works. They are all of the same mindset and, in my opinion, are over. Bill in Cheshire, Reform's candidate for Makerfield, should be the guy who stood last time, a good local candidate. I'll get to more of your feedback shortly via text. How about this voice note from Daniel?
Good morning, Mark. It's Daniel from Epsom here. What is the point in changing the leader of this awful socialist Labour Party? I would ask, are you going to stop the boats? Are you going to cut legal immigration down to extraordinarily low numbers? Are you going to send the 2 or 3 million illegals here home? Are you going to get on top of law and order? Are you going to help small businesses? You know, are you going to get the economy going again? If you're not going to do any of these things, what is the point in changing the leader? The whole party is so left-wing, they won't let you do anything. If you're not going to do what the British majority demand, there's no point in changing your leader.
Well said. Let's head to Downing Street now and Times Radio's political reporter Ollie Cole. Hello, Ollie.
Hi there, Mark.
Sir Keir Starmer is going to cling to power. He fought very hard to become Prime Minister. He will not relinquish that role easily.
No, I mean, you know, one of his closest allies a little earlier in the week when the leadership tension was sort of bubbling away, you know, said there's one thing to note about Keir Starmer, and that is that he is a really stubborn word I can't use on the radio. So, you know, that is essentially how they describe him. He sees this as his duty to stay on. He was elected on a mandate in 2024 to be the Prime Minister. He was elected to be leader of the Labour Party, and he is going to dig in. And, you know, that is the message from the Starmer camp, from the government this morning. They're trying to make it seem as if it's business as usual. We've had the new Health Secretary, James Murray, heading to Downing Street this morning. Lucy Rigby, the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury, in as well, both to sort of film some nice new snazzy social media videos, which I'm sure we'll see emerge a little bit later. And, you know, this morning, speaking to broadcasters, Steve Reed, the Housing Secretary, saying that, look, at the moment, there is no leadership challenge. There is no leadership competition. Now, that may be true, but, you know, it is essentially only true until it isn't. And we all know the inevitable thing that's coming down the track. Andy Burnham is going to try and stand in this by-election. It would be a remarkable thing if he was blocked from standing. You know, the thought within the Labour Party and within the government now is that he should be allowed to do so. And whilst Keir Starmer and his team are trying to crack on with the day job, he sees every day as, you know, a good one if he wakes up as Prime Minister at the moment. The reality is those, even in government, Rosie Writing, who's a sort of bright new star of the Labour Party and a principal private secretary, a ministerial aide, worked under Wes Streeting as Health Secretary, has been posting this morning saying, you know, essentially praising all of Wes Streeting's work and saying we need a vision and open debate of ideas about how we move forward from this moment with the best field of candidates that our movement has. Even people who are actually working for the government are up this morning posting as if a leadership election is on the way. It is only currently number 10 who are still saying it's not happening yet.
Ollie, it's my view that Sir Keir Starmer doesn't get much right. I think his big issue is he's not very good at politics. That said, given that he thwarted Andy Burnham's effort to run in Gorton and Denton. If Burnham fails to win this forthcoming by-election, then it will be judged as a political masterstroke by the Prime Minister.
Look, I mean, this is high stakes for everyone involved. Essentially, the Prime Minister and his team have spent the week saying, come on then, you know, put up or shut up. It is time to either take me on or don't. And you'll have to prove that you've got the numbers amongst the Parliamentary Labour Party, you've got the numbers among the membership, and you can actually do it. For Andy Burnham, it's even higher stakes. There has been so much talk over the last couple of years about Andy Burnham returning to Westminster. He has always sort of put it on the back burner, keep sort of teasing it, not ruling it out, and not doing it. This now is the massive challenge for him. He has to take on reform in Manchester, reform on the ascendancy politically across the country. You know, won loads of local election seats last weekend in that Makerfield area, and he now has to take them on. It is essentially a battle that will show you what will happen the next general election. Andy Burnham, if he wins, he can prove he's the man that can take on reform and lead the Labour Party. If he loses, that is essentially his political career on the Labour Westminster side pretty much dead and buried.
Ollie Colts, absolutely sterling work from Downing Street. Thank you so much for joining us, Times Radio's political reporter. Lord Robert Hayward is a Tory peer and pollster and political analyst, I should say. Lord Hayward, welcome back to Talk Breakfast.
Good morning.
Very good to see you. This is an almighty gamble on the part of Andy Burnham. He's not a shoo-in to win this by-election.
No, he's not. As you said just now, Reform did unbelievably well in the constituency in local elections last Thursday. But having said that, Andy Burnham comes from that constituency. He has incredibly high recognition. His achievements in terms of votes when he's been standing for Greater Manchester Mayor have been quite exceptional. So my expectation is that he would win the by-election when it takes place if he is the Labour candidate.
Well, we have some breaking news, Lord Hayward. The pound has dropped in value after the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, launched his campaign to return to Westminster and presumably to become Prime Minister. Sterling has dropped by 0.8% against the dollar since the Mayor of Greater Manchester announced his intention to run in Makerfield in the by-election. The pound has been put on track for its worst week in more than a year. The bond markets are not happy about this political uncertainty, are they, Robert?
Oh, no, no question about it. The financial markets, immediately it was indicated that there was going to be a vacancy in Makerfield. The bond market, the pound, started falling. Given Andy Burnham's record in comments about the bond market and generally in relation to the city, it is quite natural that there would be both an immediate and marked reaction from the financial markets. And at the end of the day, that would cause problems for any Chancellor of the Exchequer if Andy Burnham were leading as the Labour Party as Prime Minister.
Robert, it's my view, and doubtless yours as well, that two senior politicians that would like to see Andy Burnham defeated in Makerfield are the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK. Reform are going to throw everything at this. What do they need to do to get across the line?
It's going to be a challenge for them, despite the incredibly strong base from which they operate. It's also interesting that Reform are using the phrase throw everything at it, not over boosting their chances, which I think they did at Gorton and Denton, by starting from day one saying they were going to win. I think it's much more sensible to tone down those expectations. But you're absolutely right. The amazing thing that the Labour Party will be facing is a campaign message, vote Labour to change the Prime Minister. I'm not sure that even in my memory of political history can I remember ever such an odd set of circumstances where, as you say, both Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage would be overjoyed at a Reform victory.
If Andy Burnham is thwarted in Makerfield, does that secure the position of the Prime Minister?
No, it doesn't, because there are still other people circling. You've got Wes Streeting, you've got Angela Rayner, you've got Al Carnes, Ed Miliband. The die, to a large extent, has been cast. You've got almost 100 Labour MPs, 25% of the parliamentary party, already saying they want Keir Starmer to go. And remembering also that there's a pretty large proportion of the Labour Party on the payroll who, unless they choose to resign, are going to say nothing, but that doesn't mean that they are completely happy with Keir Starmer. So no question about it. He will still face difficulties, and the net result is British politics and, as you identified, the financial markets and our economic stability will have a problem right through the summer, whether Andy Burnham is there or not.
If Andy Burnham does prevail and ultimately becomes Prime Minister, do you think there's a chance he might seek a mandate and call a snap election?
No. There's always this question, should a new Prime Minister, certain circumstances, call a general election? But Andy Burnham, if he became leader, would have 400 odd Labour MPs, huge majority, his opportunity to do what he wanted with whoever he thought would be appropriate in his cabinet. So no, there will not be. It's almost the only thing I'm willing to go absolutely clear on, other than Andy Burnham's own chances in Makerfield. In relation to what might happen this summer, there won't be a general election this year.
Robert, what's your estimation as to how much damage has been done to the Labour political brand given this recent political drama?
Oh, very substantial. There's no polls as yet that show the clear indication of the drama. And of course, what we're talking here about is a drama over the last 7 days. But the reality is that the first attempted defenestration of Keir Starmer was back in January. So we've been living with this already for months and months and months. And as I say, the prospects are that this will go on for many more months. And there's no question the rise of the Greens and the surge of reform at the local elections last week had a lot to do with the problems of the Labour Party.
Robert, a privilege to have you on the programme. Thank you for your wise input and counsel. Lord Robert Hayward, Tory peer, pollster and political analyst. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? Lots more to come. 9:37 Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:39 Talk Breakfast. Is Andy Burnham the second coming? Here's a voice note.
Morning, Mark. It's Dan from Kent. So the King of the North is going to swoop in, save the country, and we'll all be good again. Well, I don't think so. He's going to double down on stupid net zero. He's going to double down on welfare. We're probably going to borrow more money, driving this country into ever more debt. And I think he's actually a little bit delusional when he forgets that there's a turquoise army out there. And I couldn't think of a better candidate for reform if they could persuade her, being Maggie Oliver. Can you just see it now? Sticking two fingers up to Burnham, giving those survivors of grooming gangs a voice. Yeah, bring it on.
Dan, what a tantalising thought. Maggie Oliver, who is a national hero and a legend, if she ran in that seat, my goodness, wouldn't she give Burnham a run for his money? Thank you for that, Dan. Now, big event this weekend. The Met Police have said that organisers of the Unite the Kingdom March and March for Palestine demonstrations will be held responsible for any hate speech connected with the events in what they expect to be one of the busiest days for policing in London in recent years. So you've got the pro-Palestine March and Unite the Kingdom. Live facial recognition will be used in an area of Camden where Unite the Kingdom attenders are expected to gather. More than 4,000 cops will be drafted in to police the rival events. But we didn't have facial recognition cameras for those so-called peace marches after October the 7th every weekend, did we? So is this two-tier policing? Who better to ask than a very good friend of mine, former Met Police detective and talk legend, Peter Blexley. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Do you think there's a whiff of two-tier policing about this, given how robust the authorities are going to be in handling the Unite the Kingdom march?
The Metropolitan Police was formed in 1829, so it's nearly 200 years old. I don't underplay this at all. Tomorrow is most likely the biggest, most significant day in the nearly 200-year history of the Metropolitan Police. Tomorrow, they will be tested to see whether they can fundamentally police even-handedly, fairly, responsibly, without fear and without favour. If they fail to do that tomorrow, then this organisation, as we know it, and its leader are doomed.
What's your opinion of this event, the Unite the Kingdom March? Because Trevor Phillips, who's one of the most experienced journalists in the country and a British man of colour, attended the previous march and said that a good number of the people in attendance were the sort of people you'd meet in the queue for a beer at the pub or at a cricket match.
Well, first of all, I would like to give praise to Tommy Robinson, who is seen as the voice and the name of this gathering, albeit, of course, there are lots of other disparate groups and organisers behind him. Because Mr. Robinson this week has very clearly and unequivocally said to people going on this gathering, do not wear face masks, do not break the law. Let's make this peaceful and about showing patriotism for the UK. And he deserves credit for that. I sincerely hope that everybody that goes listens very carefully and abides by his words. I think it will be, by and large, a peaceful gathering. I sincerely hope so. I want to see the police even-handedly deal with both the pro-Palestinian marchers and the Unite the Kingdom, or Unite the West, as it's also been known. And we also have to remember that Keir Starmer has been pernicious and provocative by banning certain speakers from coming to this event. Keir Starmer wants there to be a fight tomorrow, and I would urge everybody, and I mean everybody, who's going to show their patriotism, do not give Starmer what he wants.
And of course, the Prime Minister, as you know, Peter, will vehemently deny those allegations and argue that he very passionately feels strongly for free speech and doesn't want trouble. But you are, of course, Peter, entitled to your view, and you're an experienced ex-cop. Do you think that there will be far-left agitators that will go there tomorrow to make trouble?
Of course, absolutely. And I also fear that there may be some people that go on the Kingdom March who start off by having a drink in the early hours of the morning as they make their way there. I don't want there to be any problems, any fights, any violence of any description on either of the gatherings. But I'm sure that there will be people there who are just going to agitate, who will be suitably positioned with cameras at the ready so that they can film any violence that happens and say, there you go, I told them they're all a bunch of thugs, which would, of course, be completely false, would not be a fair representation of the overwhelming majority of people that are going to go there tomorrow. But just one point, and I do understand you bringing balance. Starmer has banned a number of speakers who were going to go and speak at the United Kingdom Unite the West march. That's a fact. They've been banned from entering the UK. In my opinion, that is deliberately provocative. It is inconsistent, but let's hope that tomorrow the Metropolitan Police can rise to the task, be even-handed, be fair, and be robust if the need arises.
Do you detect in the mood music around this event tomorrow a different approach from the police to what we saw during those weekly so-called peace marches? So there's talk of facial recognition, 4,000 cops. I don't remember such a robust police approach to the weekly marches.
And of course, they've told us that sandcat vehicles will be deployed. There's kind of armoured vehicles.
We didn't have any of that with the pro-Hamas marches, which made Jews afraid to walk in London.
Exactly. And on that note, if anybody tomorrow issues one of those revolting, genocidal chants where they call for the abolition of an entire following of a particular faith, if any of that happens tomorrow, I want to see the Metropolitan Police act properly, robustly, and arrest those people. They, of course, may say, well, we'll gather the evidence and arrest them at some later stage. But that kind of appeasement has only encouraged these people and made their behaviour get worse and worse as the couple of years have gone by since October the 7th.
Peter, do you worry that what we will see tomorrow will be two-tier policing? Is there a chance that could happen?
It's the Metropolitan Police's biggest challenge to date. It will be there will be masses of media. There will be hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people there. It is the biggest test. Will the Metropolitan Police do their job without fear and without favour? Or will they show preferential treatment to one group over another? If they do, Sir Mark Rowley, the Commissioner, will be finished, and the Metropolitan Police will clearly demonstrate that it is not fit for purpose. It is the Metropolitan Police's biggest test in nearly 200 years.
It is a test. And now, Peter, as you know, there are always rotten apples in every barrel, and there will be some extremists and some dangerous nutters, perhaps a tiny minority at the Unite the Kingdom march. So notwithstanding potential troublemakers on both sides, why do you think the majority of folk will be going on that march tomorrow, a number of whom are watching or listening now?
Because Britain in 2026 is most definitely not what it was in 1976, 1986 or 1996. This country has fallen so far from what it was. I'm afraid our public services are polluted by the lunatic, left-wing, Japanese knotweed of wokery, flakery, progressiveness, often which is so pernicious because standards have fallen, politeness, courtesy, because discipline is regarded as a dirty word in our schools, in our public services, and Britain is not what it once was. People long for a Britain of yesteryear. They are patriotic, they are polite, they live side by side with people of other ethnicities, of other faiths, but they see Britain helter-skeltering, headlong, at breakneck speed towards a tipping point from which it may never recover. And some people love this country so much, including me, that we want it to be what it once was.
And that's hardly a crime, is it? Peter, brilliant to see you again. We will speak soon. Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Well, I'm on air tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. We will bring you coverage of the Unite the Kingdom march. And what you're going to get on Talk Breakfast on my watch, because I'm in charge, is you're going to get balanced reporting on what happens at that march. You'll get the truth. You won't get biased commentary. You will get the facts. And if you're on that march tomorrow, will you do me a favour? Will you give me a call? 0344 499 1000. I'm on air from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You call me before you go, whilst you're there, when you're back, because I want to know why people are going on that march, and I want to hear from all sides. But looking forward to that. That is Talk Breakfast tomorrow morning. We've got lots to go at tomorrow. So much to get through, though, with a few minutes left on air. The fantastic Alex Phillips is next. But your calls, a simple question. Will a new Prime Minister save Labour? 9:50 Talk Breakfast.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to my brilliant team for a great effort today. Christian, Sam, the one and only Tommy, and Luke directing our TV output. Back on Talk Breakfast tomorrow morning with full coverage of the Unite the Kingdom march. It will be unbiased reporting. We'll give you the numbers, we'll give you what happened, and we'll get views from across the political spectrum. If you're going on that march, I want you on the show tomorrow because I want to hear why you are doing it. Here's a voice note from Big Tony.
Morning, Mark. Tony from Worcester. Just got to say, I disagree with your guest. He thinks that if by some miracle Andy Burnham gets in, there would be some sort of bounce and Labour will call an early general election. Come on, mate. You've got Keir Starmer that did the Chagos deal, threw away billions for no reason, decided that we can have a huge Chinese embassy smack bang in the middle of London against the security services advice. The Unite the Kingdom protest and the Free Palestine protest is going on this weekend. There's facial recognition only on one of those protests, and it's not the one that's anti-Semitic, that's shouting about killing Jews. This is bizarre. You've got to wonder if Keir is working for some other country. It's just very strange.
Tony, you are so right about that. The voice notes have been outstanding this morning. We couldn't do the show without the calls, without the texts, without the voice notes. Martin is live in Belfast. Top of the morning, Martin.
Top of the morning to you, Mark. Love you guys. Listen to you all the time.
Thank you, Martin. We're nothing without you, sir.
Right, I'm in Belfast. I'm an active member of the Democratic Unionist Party. One slant that hasn't really been put on these elections and the turmoil and chaos that's going on in Westminster is this is threatening the Union. This is threatening United Kingdom. You've got John Twinney, SNP, now fifth time, will go headlong for independence by 2030. You've got Wales, Plaid Cymru, who are saying, oh no, not this time round, but perhaps next time round. And in Northern Ireland, we are constantly fighting the threat of nationalism from Sinn Féin all the time in the power sharing arrangement that we have in the Assembly here. And all that's going to happen now, and you can understand why the devolution parties would look at it this way. And also, one final point, Mark, there hasn't been much publicity on the bill for devolution in England that's actually now waiting for royal assent. So if we're not careful, the United Kingdom is going to be split asunder in the next couple of years if we're not careful. And that would be absolutely disastrous in my view.
Well, Martin, you're so right to raise that issue around the union. There are also concerns about our relationship with the EU. Will there be a surrender to Brussels? Then there's also talk, Martin, of changing the electoral system to proportional representation. And you know what that means? It means progressive left-wing administrations for the rest of time.
Mark, I couldn't agree with you more, but I just wanted, hopefully it's right at the end of your session, perhaps you can carry it forward into Alex if she's on or...
Well, definitely. It's all about the union, Martin. We're done for if we lose it, aren't we?
It's all about the union, and I can assure you that the unionist parties in Northern Ireland, you know, if you come to Northern Ireland, you will see far more Union Jacks flying than you ever see in England, Wales and Scotland, right? But we're fighting that because we're going to be pulled into one island, and we're going to be pulled back into the European Union as part of that. So this at the moment is the worst possible result. I really wish that Reform had got had beaten Plaid Cymru. I'm amazed at what happened with the SNP for a fifth term. It's crazy, but this whole hodgepodge of activity now is going to be, if we're not careful, we've really got to focus on this issue.
OK, brilliant. Listen, thank you, Martin. An important rallying cry for the union, which is certainly imperilled if the likes of Andy Burnham become Prime Minister. A brilliant last-minute intervention there. Live at 10 is the brilliant Alex Phillips. And that gentleman's right, isn't he? You know, there's so much at stake, depending on who sits in number 10.
Hugely, but I think increasingly people feel that it doesn't make a difference. Unless someone's going to do something really radical, we're just becoming a joke. I was looking today online, I found a brilliant article in the Herald, the Scottish newspaper, and you look at all the MSPs, the newly elected MSPs who've been sworn into Parliament speaking foreign languages. And you just think, well, this is just a farce. They're laughing in our face at this point. They're not going to do anything to change our direction of travel. We know that.
It's a huge problem. Now, Burnham's massively rolling the dice here. He's put his entire political career on the, you know, with basically taking a chance.
Because what's interesting is everybody else seems to be quitting for him. He hasn't stood down as Manchester Mayor. He knows he's got his job to go back to if he's not successful. Is he really putting his career on the line?
It's amazing. It's, well...
No.